angry, damn it. You know, like, this is crazy.
And anybody who sees that and goes, oh my God, they're the same websites.
They murdered my grandpa, our grandpa, and they deserve punishment for what they did.
Tell the government to go screw off.
Oh, man.
Well, the drama in the gun world continues. 6 weeks ago, it was Lucas Botkin being bounced out of his own company at T-Rex Arms. And today, I guess it's us talking about how the Gun Owners of America and the other federal gun groups screwed us over on the BBB, on the NFA, and how Jared with Guns and Gadgets, a guy who I typically like, I think we all like him ordinarily, shot a video about the Dorr Brothers, which I thought was very interesting. And we shot a video yesterday. This is part 2. If you haven't watched yesterday's video on this topic, click the link in the description of this video and be sure to like and subscribe. No doubt this saga will continue for at least a little while until all the facts get out, and you're not going to want to miss it. So subscribe to our channels. But in particular, we're here today. I'm Ben Dorr. This is my brother Aaron, my brother Chris Dorr. We are the Dorr Brothers. We do Second Amendment and pro-life politics.
Yeah, there's more. We couldn't fit them all on the screen.
That's right. This is right. If Jared had mentioned the rest of the Dorr Brothers, they'd be on screen too. That's right. But he missed a couple of them, or a few of them. But we're talking about the video that he shot about us. We would have much rather sat down and had a discussion with him face to face on camera so he can ask questions and get clarifying comments. But that hasn't happened yet. But we're going to discuss the video that he shot about us, said a few things straight, put a few things on the record. But again, we wanted to discuss it with him to begin with. Chris, you're the one who was talking with Jared. How did that go down?
Yeah, and I'm gonna pop this up here so that everybody can see this. But I reached out to him, I think it was a couple months ago, back in February, when there was some other stuff happening in Congress. I think he had highlighted a video that we had done in one of his videos. So I reached out to him personally and asked him, you guys can see the email right here. I said, hey, it'd be fun to do an episode where you grill me about the Dorr Brothers. I'd be happy to come on your show anytime you want with no restrictions. I have zero problems answering any questions you might come up with. In other words, and then you can see right here, I blacked out my email address and my cell phone, but this is dated February 20 of this year. And he got the email, obviously, because you can see here in the second one, that I got an email back from him. Again, this is dated February 20th, a little later on that afternoon. He's like, Chris, I'll give you a call tomorrow. I'll probably give you a call tomorrow. Been busy with the family and traveling for a speaking event. Unfortunately, I'm not at CPAC. I had invited him in my email that I'd buy him a cup of coffee, but I blurred out his address, obviously. But he got the email. And that's honestly what I wanted to do, was just sit down with him, open book, and say, hey, shoot me whatever question you want. And he's a cool enough guy. I mean, I've watched enough of his videos over the years that if he'd have requested it, well, we surely could have all three got together and had a panel interview. He could have asked all three of us questions, or 4 or 5, or however many brothers that he wanted on the scene there. But as you guys can see right here, I reached out to him, made contact with him, offered to have a full-blown open conversation with him, and he didn't want to do that. And I never got a call back. Checked my phone logs. Nothing ever happened. Never called me the next day. I mean, I understand getting busy. So none of that. It never happened.
Which I just, to shoot the video that he shot after being given the offer to actually talk, he didn't even have to deploy the video if he didn't want to. If he recorded the whole interview and thought, you know what, I don't even want, he didn't have to. But he didn't even contact you back and keep the ball rolling here. And we were in the middle of some great big fights. We were calling out the NRA on some stuff, which we've done many, many times. And so that's why today we're just going to play his video for you and answer the questions that he might have asked if he had actually had an interview.
And he would have got a lot more views if he'd done that, because, gosh, Al Jazeera has asked for time with us. I mean, CNN has pinged us in the past, like, a lot of folks want what he was offered, Chris. And
Time Magazine, Daily
didn't take
Mail, they've all requested interviews with us. What's their names? NPR did a full-blown podcast series on the Dorr Brothers. They won a Pulitzer Prize, NPR's only Pulitzer that they've ever won, because they did a podcast series on the Doors. So yeah, I'm really excited about this. Honestly, I like going through stuff. In my opinion, the best way to clear the air on everything is to be direct and forward. We're going to play his video for you guys and just walk right through it.
Just before you press play, I could not agree with you more about we like doing this. I'm so proud of the work that we've done and the way that we've done it and the way we formatted everything and our successes, legislative, electoral, the stuff we've been able to accomplish with relatively very little money compared to a lot of other groups that are bloated and in existence out there doing nothing. I'd give anything to sit down with any of these gun tubers and let them ask questions and fill them in on what we've been doing. And we can bring receipts. We can bring all the things. Hey, you want to know something for sure? We'll show it to you. I'm psyched about that kind of thing. This kind of video makes me very excited. I love talking about it. And because I'm proud, very happy with what we've done over the last, well, I've only been here 10 years. You guys have been here substantially longer, but I say go ahead, press play. Let's rock and roll with this thing.
Yep, let's do it. So the first thing I'm going to pop up here real quick is this. This is the thumbnail that he used for his video, and I like the looks of that that pile of money. I don't know where it came from. Maybe that's a YouTuber thing, but I want to point out
that's a Mr. Beast. That's a Mr. Beast thing for me.
Yeah, it definitely looks like it. It's very eye-catching, but what I'd like to point out, and I think this is kind of a real good illustration of what we're going to go through in this video, is that the picture that he's using right there is actually a picture of Aaron, me, and Ben. And I think this was back in 2019.
I think
and
so.
That picture was taken of us, and we were at a little runway airport. I think it was on the east side of Indianapolis, about 2.5 miles from downtown.
East side,
and it was in 2019. And we had just launched an airplane in the air at the NRA's annual convention to confront the NRA, us, not anybody else, to confront the NRA, Wayne LaPierre and Chris Cox, for their open support and calling for a national red flag gun confiscation law. Millions of gun owners have seen the video by now, where they came out and openly, Chris Cox was openly saying, urging Congress to pass a national red flag law so we could stop criminals before they commit crimes. And so to hold the NRA accountable, which by any metric standard is the biggest ship in the gun rights space, to hold them accountable and hopefully turn that ship back at Congress the right direction, instead of, at that point, it was aimed at we the people. We were there to hold the NRA accountable and say, no, sir, absolutely not. You're not going to do that. You're not going to sit there and pretend that gun control position is anything other than what it is.
Well, the reason we were doing it then is because they were at that moment pushing President Trump in his first term to pass this bill. And that is why Trump in his first term was like, yeah, we could do a red flag law. That was all coming from the NRA. And so what are we going to do? We're going to hopefully get some press, get some videos out there, let the Trump administration see that, hold on a minute, gun owners all over the country do not support red flag laws. And I'm being fed a line of bullshit from the National Rifle Association under Wayne LaPierre. That was the whole point, because we were on the cusp of getting a national red flag law because the NRA was shoving it down our throats and telling Donald Trump it's what the people wanted.
Well, the flip side of that coin is that no other national gun organization would do their job and call out the NRA. Everyone wants to maintain their little positions. Everyone wants to maintain their little network, but nobody wanted to go head to head with the National Rifle Association and tell President Trump, you're being misled. And so when we had, this pilot, this guy's like a suicide jockey. The guy was totally fearless. We have two banners that he's pulling, one for 4 hours and like one for 4 hours. It was like two different parts of different days. But the last one he pulled, it said the day that President Trump flew into Indy, and as he was on Marine One choppering over, it said, President Trump, please save us from red flag laws or something like that, because nobody else would tell him that the NRA was giving him a load of crap, and that people, the gun owners, did not actually want to see red flags. To me, that was one of the coolest days by far in the American Firearms Association's history, at least in those early years, was that day flying around downtown Indy with this little plane pulling that banner. And then it was later on, I think it was a couple months later, we were then taken to the White House to meet with some of the domestic policy staff. I forget the names, because in no small part because they were realizing, oh, the people don't actually want red flag gun seizures, despite what the NRA is saying.
Well, because and you're going to hear a lot of this in the video. Oh, the Doors are angry. They're really controversial. Because of the work that we did in 2019, gun owners all across the country were seeing this, and the NRA's own comment section was just tearing them apart. It was every single comment was a gun owner saying, stop betraying gun owners, stop supporting red flag laws. And that's what we told to Trump's domestic policy staff was, we hear what NRA leadership is saying. Go read their comment section. Their comment section will tell you where gun owners are right now in America. And it was huge. And Trump totally backed off red flag laws. If you remember, Aaron, we delivered 116,000 signed petitions to the White House. And that was like, that dolly cart was like, it was wild. Like, we're carting this crap all over the place. There's 116,000 pieces of paper. And we got to shut down. So I want to thank Jared with Guns and Gadgets for using that very memorable photo of us confronting the NRA's support for red flag laws as the basis for calling us a fake gun group.
Definitely. All right. So, and we're not going to get into the other stuff that was going on with the NRA at the time. Wayne LaPierre was like wallowed in his Ackerman McQueen scandal. They were funneling millions of dollars off over there. He was buying suits in Hollywood, had his pink flamingo girl as his secretary. We're not going to get into all that. And it's, again, just to kind of echo what Aaron said there was nobody else calling them out for those things at the time until we exploded this. We had to go to drastic measures by grabbing that airplane and circling around their swank downtown hotel. But the last thing I would say on that was it was a risk for sure. Like, some of the gun owners walking into the NRA convention were like, screw you guys, right? But a lot of people were like, we were passing out these flyers and they were saying, I had no idea. And we blew this up online. And that's the reason the other gun groups won't say a word, is because, well, some of GOA's members are NRA members. We might look bad. We don't know how people might take this. It's better to stay silent and get completely screwed over than to speak up and risk getting in trouble for it. Well, we're willing to go there every single time to achieve the mission, which at that time was stopping red flags nationally. Definitely. If it's easy, everybody's going to do it. So let's jump into the video, guys. I'm gonna kick it off right here and see if I can pull this up. I need to unmute it first and foremost. So we're just going to walk through it. We're going to address everything point by point, so you guys have the our side of the story, the full story, the story that we would have happily provided to him if he just agreed to sit down with us like I had invited him to. So let's play the first part here, and we'll just go through it. Ready?
Go for it.
All right.
It's your premier source for Second Amendment news. Over the last couple weeks, many of you have asked me about the Dorr Brothers and claims that they have been making via their American Firearms Association group. I hear you. I understand your concerns. That's what they want. And I want you to be aware of some things. Now, I have some important information today that every freedom-loving American needs to hear. And I'll preface this by saying this is my opinion by many things I have read, people I have spoken to, but I think you need to know because some of the emails and messages I've been receiving, it seems some folks are being fooled. Now, you've probably seen them online, aggressive and bold, claiming to be the only true defenders of your gun rights. But behind the scenes, it might just be one of the most questionable fundraising schemes in the 2A movement. Now, recently, they claimed that Gun Owners of America, Second Amendment Foundation, Firearms Policy Coalition, and the National Rifle Association made a backroom deal with Senate Majority Leader Thune to remove the full versions of the Hearing Protection Act and the full version of the Short Act. Now, essentially, the Dorr Brothers claim that these groups were okay with the National Firearms Act tax being removed and having the unconstitutional registration scheme remain.
I'm just gonna pause it right there for just a minute. I'm gonna break in. I'm gonna reiterate really quickly that we've been making the case that when GOA and of course FPC, SAF, and the NRA signed that letter to Senate Majority Leader John Thune on June 27th, that they were not going to demand full deregulation of SBRs, SBSs, and suppressors, but instead we're fine with simply zeroing out the tax on NFA items. And I should have had that letter up here ready to go. Maybe I can pop that up here in just a couple of minutes. But by them signing that letter on June 27th, that was the green light for John Thune to uphold the ruling of the unelected Harry Reid, Democrat-hired Senate parliamentarian to do exactly that. In other words, they
Hey everyone, welcome back to Guns and Gadgets, your premier source.
In other words, they capitulated and waved the white flag before the fight ever got started. That letter was dated on June 27th, but they started tweeting and emailing on the 29th that they were fighting to keep SBRs, SBSs, and suppressors deregulation in the Senate reconciliation bill. So he's already kind of twisting things here a little bit by not acknowledging the sequence of events from the outset of this fight. I hope that was pretty clear.
Chris, I've got the image. I can put it on the screen. It's going to kind of cover our faces for a moment, but
yeah,
you want to put that up there?
Yeah, just go ahead and pop it up so everybody can read it for themselves.
Yeah, when he says it's complete horse, this is what we're talking about right here. It's the third paragraph. This says NRA, this is GOA, this is everybody else on the top of this press release here. Days before the parliamentarian did the dreaded deal, they said right there in the third paragraph that they'd be content, well-established precedent to lower the NFA's unconstitutional excise tax and suppressors to $0. And once you make that play, once you go there and tell John Thune, we're okay with this, we'll accept this. Well, I mean, John Thune was like, yeah, baby, because he's got exactly what he needs. All these gun organizations saying, right, yeah, we're really not going to fight you on this. We're going to tell our people that we're content with this. And so I don't know where Jared got it's bullshit.
Yeah, so in other words, we're not making a claim. We're simply taking GOA, FPC, SAF, NRA, all of them at face value.
Yeah.
We're believing what they put out on the 27th. It's not us creating anything here. It's just simply reading the letter.
It wasn't so much a smoky backroom deal as it was a public statement on letterhead for everybody to read. We don't have to be sitting in the room to know what happened. Just read the letter.
Right. Read it for yourselves. So let me get back on here. And it's going to be hard if we navigate away from the screen because it kind of...
You've probably seen them online, aggressive and bold, claiming to be the only true defenders of your gun rights.
Aggressive and bold. Yeah. Honestly, we are a little bit aggressive and bold because if you look back on the last 25 years of gun rights advocacy, I don't think that that timidity is what wins the day in the face of the radical when you're going up against the gun grabbing radicalized left. So we would contend that it's good and proper to be aggressive and bold, not just for ourselves, but for our kids and our grandkids. So,
well, who has gotten further in the last 25 years? The radical left being aggressive and bold. They've done stuff that we couldn't have even fathomed, but they have advanced their agenda every step of the way. Now, Trump, in a lot of different areas, is the first Republican politician that we've seen in who knows how long, who is doing aggressive and bold things and actually achieving some wins on different issues. Now, I know there's other things that are going on right now that people are not so pleased about, but the idea that you can do politics and do it well and actually advance your cause by being not aggressive and not bold is ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous.
That belongs right back in 1995, and it needs to stay there. So anyway, let's just keep on going.
But behind the scenes, it might just be one of the most questionable fundraising schemes in the 2A movement. Now, recently, they claimed that Gun Owners of America, Second Amendment Foundation, Firearms Policy Coalition, and the National Rifle Association made a backroom deal with Senate Majority Leader Thune to remove the full versions of the Hearing Protection Act and the full version of the Short Act.
Well, there's the letter, the open letter to Congress. In fact, Aaron, can you pop that up one more time? Because there was a second paragraph there I thought that was also very illuminating. Unless the Senate chooses to overrule her egregious decision or blah, 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 which is well within their rights, immediate action must be taken to ensure law-abiding Americans are able to exercise their Second Amendment rights without their draconian tax. NFA tax. So multiple times in this open letter to Congress, this is not us claiming it, this is them publishing it and openly saying it, they waved the white flag right there. We believe them when they wrote those things on that letter. The problem is that so did John Thune. And again, this is on June 27th, before the reconciliation fight had ratcheted into high gear on the 29th. So it's not us, Jared. It's them. So we'll keep going.
Now, essentially, the Dorr Brothers claim that these groups were okay with the National Firearms Act tax being removed and having the unconstitutional registration scheme remain. That's complete horseshit. Now, I talked with all of these groups regularly behind the scenes, and that's how I was bringing you all of those, reports. They gave me some information. I got information from Capitol Hill. And while those groups were actually working to include the legislation that would decimate the NFA, the full versions, that's not what's being reported by a group. Now, I know what they were.
Hold up. I gotta. We talk about the legislation to decimate the National Firearms Act. That's not what we were talking about with the BBB. There's one bill in Congress that would repeal the National Firearms Act, that would decimate, like he said, the National Firearms Act. And that was filed by the American Firearms Association. HR was a 335. I mean, this has been going on for decades and decades and decades and decades. And only the last 2 years, when the American Firearms Association really pushed for this specifically in Congress, is there bills being filed to repeal the National Firearms Act. All these groups, decades and decades and decades of time, nobody ever even tried to repeal the National Firearms Act. So I'm just confused. I'm not confused, but I think Jared, I don't know if he's confused or if he's just trying to act confused, but the effort to really decimate the NFA, that's HR 335, and we filed that. So I'll hit play again here, Chris.
We're doing. I worked closely with them, and I told you regularly who needed to have pressure put on them and when, in order to get the Hearing Protection Act included in the big, beautiful bill when it was back in the House of Representatives at the early stages. Because they didn't want to do it, the politicians. Many of them didn't want that legislation in the bill. But your grassroots voice, you all putting pressure on the politicians, as well as the lobbying that GOA and SAF and FPC and even NRA ILA were doing, made a difference. They actually, guys, I witnessed it firsthand. You either believe me or you don't. But you know what I didn't see? Again,
okay, I know there's this cliffhanger there, what he didn't see, so we'll come back to that in just a second, but I got to throw in there, we're talking about two different things right now. We're talking about the House version of the BBB, which only included a suppressor deregulation, And then it's going to pass out of the House and then over to the Senate, where members of the Senate had included the Short Act and deregulation on SBSs as well. So the grassroots push from the very outset in the House, yes, that was unified on suppressors. But once it passed out of the House, that's when the fight started to try to maintain the Short Act within the BBB. So just keep that in mind as he says what he's about to say here.
Didn't see the Doors driving the American patriots to call politicians and pressure them when we needed that to happen.
And so now we've got this bill from the House over in the Senate. The Senate has strengthened this legislation, this legislative congressional deregulation of the NFA. They've got this legislation, this language in that reconciliation bill. And so at this point, the letter has been published by NRA, GOA. And so the point was at this point, not to necessarily put pressure on Congress, but to try to get all of the American gun rights organizations on the same page to stop telling the Senate that we were okay with just simply zeroing out the tax. I don't know why he doesn't have the integrity to say those things. It's just, I don't know. It's just, they're two separate things here that he's conflating. And were you going to say something, Ben?
No, the timeline is being muddled by Jared. He's intentionally not putting the things in the sequence of events that they happen. He's muddling the timeline because unless you were following it pretty damn closely, it was pretty hard to, you don't know that what Jared is saying is completely inaccurate timeline-wise.
And a lot of people were following it very closely. So anyway, let's keep on going here.
I didn't see the Dorr brothers working with leadership to push the Hearing Protection Act and the Short Act.
Well, we could work with leadership to push those things. It would be better if every single gun rights organization in America was also not going out and snatching defeat from the jaws of victory 2 days previously by saying that we were okay, telling John Thune we were okay with just zeroing out the tax.
What did I really see was that they were sure ready to spew hatred and divide gun owners and score donations off of the work of others.
All right. I feel like I'm kind of dominating this here a little bit, but do any of you want to pipe in here about the fact that he's saying that we're spewing hatred?
There's no hate here. There's no hate here. We're just tired of other gun groups who have a lot of power. They raise far more money than we do. This was their opportunity to line up and stop this crap from going down the wrong way in DC. And they didn't do that. They signed the letter telling Thune that they were fine with those changes. And we got screwed as a consequence out of this. So that's what you thought you saw, but if you were words, go ahead, Aaron.
Well, yeah, there's a big difference between hatred and, let's just be honest, legitimate frustration. Gun owners worked their tails off last year to make sure that the attacks from the left would stop, that we'd take back the Senate, we'd have a pro-gun White House, we'd keep the House. And some of us even went so far in our minds as to dream that maybe we could actually pass major pro-gun bills and repeal the damage that Joe Biden did when Republicans and Democrats helped him pass the Bipartisan Community Safer Act. Some of us still do maybe hope that we could actually get a great big W on the board. And so instead, there was a massive amount of frustration at the grassroots level, certainly that we were hearing from everybody, that we didn't fight so hard to get this. We didn't work so hard to have a tax stamp go from 200 to 0. That's not what we all went and put it on the line for in 2024. And anybody, whether it's a gun tuber or an organization who is not going to fess up to that, hey, you guys didn't fight for this. We get it. This is not enough. If you're not gonna call that out for what it is, you're being disingenuous. Gun owners demand a lot more than what we're getting, and so far we're getting very, very little. That's legitimate frustration. That's appropriate frustration. It's not hatred at all.
Yeah, and it's not division either. The division happened 2 days previously when they signed the letter. They're the ones who divided the gun rights community. You had all these people who are like, I don't give two flying fucks about the $200 tax. It's never been about that for me. It's about the fact that you got to go in there and submit to an unconstitutional agency and register with these jackbooted thugs to exercise your right. That was the division that was rammed into the gun rights community. And you can go on any forum at the time, any gun rights page, you could easily see that the gun rights community was now divided. And it was not by us. It was us simply saying, we've got to keep everybody on the same page here. Don't give John Thune any white flags. Don't surrender the ground from the outset of the fight here. That's the division. That's the division.
Well, and the accusation always comes up, and I'm so sick of it, quite frankly. The accusation always comes up that somehow the gun owners who support the American Firearms Association, who are seeing our content, who are calling their legislators, who are donating and signing petitions and going balls to the walls, they're somehow stupid. You're stupid gun owners, right? If there's division, we fostered it, and all of you gun owners who are angry about simply the tax being removed, you're only angry because we told you to be. You couldn't have possibly thought this through. You couldn't possibly be watching what's happening yourself and being pissed off about it. You couldn't possibly have been involved in the fight for gun rights for 10, 15, 20 years. And now you yourself see that we're on the cusp of a major, major overhaul and victory for the Second Amendment and getting rid of massive portions of this 90-year-old BS law that we've been living under. You couldn't have possibly been watching that yourself and going, hold up here. Why are these gun groups signing off on this crap? Don't do this now, not when we're so close. You couldn't have possibly done that yourself. You could have only thought that if we told you to. That's always the accusation from people like Guns and Gadgets, from other gun groups out there. If you work with us, if you follow our train of thought and you pay attention like we pay attention and you're pissed at getting screwed over, you're somehow just too brain dead dumb to know what's really going on, because, hey, people like Jared, they're doing phone calls with these gun groups and he's getting the real information in the background. We give the information up front on video to you guys. You're following along. You know what the hell we're talking about. You're seeing it yourself and drawing your own conclusions. And we're proud of that. And we love you guys. And we're sick and tired of you guys being told that you're morons because, well, some gun tuber said so.
Yep. And before I could click play one last time here, again, it's important, and we were getting tons of messages from all kinds of people that were saying, this looks an awful lot like these lawsuit shops. These people who prioritize taking this fight into the courts are deliberately trying to make sure that we don't get a congressional win, that this goes into the permanent lawsuit category, when America had just months before, in November of last year, delivered the House, the Senate, and the White House, and put a bill in front of Congress that Trump was calling everybody on the phone saying, I need you to support this, vote yes, or I'll primary you. All this stuff was going, this bill was going to pass, literally the biggest and only congressional chance of passing legislation in my lifetime that I've seen. Tons of people were messaging us saying, this looks like a deliberate attempt to just take this fight into the courts, when we've all watched the Supreme Court screw conservatives over on many different issues in the last couple of months. So let's get back on him here and let him talk for a minute.
That's what I saw. That's my opinion. That's my observation. But there is so much more that you should know about the Dorr Brothers, Aaron, Chris, and Ben. Their organizations claim to fight for gun rights in at least 16 states.
We do.
And on the federal level as well. Yep. But is that really what's happening? Yeah, I'm going to let you know. But first, I want to thank Attorneys on Retainer for sponsoring the video. If you carry a reasonably...
There for a second. It's like, okay, so he's going to launch about fundraising and the work we do in legislatures. And he puts right in the middle of his video, this video is brought to by this company, such and so, who are paying me to put out this content today. It's like, you're literally making money off of a video complaining about us raising money for the fight that we do. The irony, I could not believe it when it popped up. I almost fell out of my chair that he was willing to put an ad right in the middle of this video. I'm going to tell you the truth about the doors, but first, a word from my sponsor.
You cut it with this.
Oh my gosh!
Highlighter that I've got laying here. So I'm gonna have to skip ahead. This is like a
in good faith assert
5-minute long.
Dorr Brothers run a nationwide web of called for. Now, for a limited time, you can get $50 off your individual sign-up fee and $25 off your family plan sign-up fee, only if you use my code G&G at the link down below. Time's running out to lock in those prices.
Here we go.
Now, the Dorr Brothers run a nationwide web of nonprofits that look like gun rights groups on the surface. In fact, all of their websites are identical.
He's got us. It's true. And they're not just identical. Unfortunately, they're actually a little bit dated. So if somebody is going to take a shot at us for having a little bit outdated websites, I guess we'll take that L. But I guess what we should tell them, we'll give Jared a little bit of a teaser. There's going to be new websites. They're already in progress. They're big and beautiful. And you know what? When they're all done, they're going to be identical in all the states where we operate. So, but he is correct. We have the same websites because we work in so many states, and we love having these awesome websites to give people the information they have to have. But new ones are coming, and they're going to be identical.
Well, I want to throw this. I don't know if he had more to say on that, Jared, right there, or if that was kind of
let it play for just a second.
Just play it for a second. I want to come back though.
Think of names like Iowa gun owners, Minnesota gun rights, Wyoming gun owners.
Yeah. So make your point.
So I just want to point something out here, and that is that if you go on Facebook and you type in Moms Demand Action, you will find Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, or whatever the heck it's called. But if you look up your state, type in Moms Demand Action Minnesota, Moms Demand Action Wisconsin, there are state chapters of this federal gun control group in every state in the country, and they are working the legislature. They are fundraising. They are using the exact same model in every state to advance their cause. That's why it's like every day there's some press conference at some state legislature somewhere where a bunch of Democrats are lined up, and there's the gun control activists, and they're all there, and they got their plaques. We're going to push you. It's usually red flag laws and universal background checks in all the states that don't have those yet. That's what they're pushing. And then it's AR-15 bans. And they're running the same model, same blueprint, same everything, same website, same Facebook pages, same graphics, same colors everywhere. And in a lot of places, they are winning. They are duplicating, replicating the same thing. What's that?
They're scaling.
They're scaling up to win. So that's exactly what we have done. Can you imagine how retarded it would be if we were working with 15, 16 different gun rights groups and they all had different websites, formatted completely different, set up completely different? That would be a massive waste of resources. It would be stupid, and the scaling ability is not there. So we have, and not just on the websites, but across the entire work that we do, we have worked to scale things and use the things that are working well to pass constitutional carry in Iowa and Ohio and Georgia and stand your ground in Missouri and all these different places. We go, okay, this worked great. Let's do this again and again and again in this state and this state and this state. And so we have passed laws quicker with each successive state that we've gone to that had the legislative makeup to make it happen, because we scale. We're not stupid. And anybody who sees that and goes, oh my God, they're the same websites. Well, they should be the same websites because we're scaling to win. And we're not going to keep reinventing the wheel over and over and over again. That should be pretty obvious. I got a feeling some of this was obvious to Jared But
Yeah.
as a lot of influencers do, they like to talk down to the people who are listening to them. Oh, you won't get it. I got it, but you won't get it. But that's the point. So yeah, like Aaron said, we got big, beautiful new websites coming soon, and they're going to look the same. And 10 years from now, we're going to have another big, beautiful website, and it's going to look the same across all the platforms because we scale to win. We're not stupid, and we don't waste resources.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I know where my skills are, and they are not in designing websites. What I need the websites to do effectively for the states that I work in is to perform well for our members. So if you go to our websites, you will see very, very useful tools so that our members can be their own lobbyists and don't have to rely on anybody else. There's tools there that put our members in contact with their personal legislators with pre-written emails, suggested language, so that they can lobby for their own Second Amendment freedoms. They don't have to depend on any one person any given moment. So that's the basis of it. And like I said, my skill set is not in web development. My skill set, our skill set, what we are all 3, 4, 5 of us good at is managing legislation, working the legislature, working committees, providing testimony, getting bills drafted. That's where we're good. That's where we are the best. And quite frankly, that's where I would hope any gun rights activist focuses their time, because a lot of people get bogged down in that other stuff. We need a functional tool so that we can go to war with these legislators. And like Ben said, I think it's so condescending for him to present this information this way and treat everybody watching the video as if they're a bunch of idiots. People understand this, like we've talked about this before, specialization is like, it's what you get taught in your 8th grade economics class, So, and Ben, I think you had an example of that from on a working line.
Like, have you ever worked an assembly line a day in your life? You don't have one person start at the beginning and usher the same piece all the way through to the very end, right? Somebody commented, they don't make each Abrams tank look different. That's exactly right. One person handles this piece and they pass it off to the next guy, and they handle this piece and they pass it off to the next guy, and he grabs it and keeps it moving on down the assembly line. And that person gets really good at making sure the piece they're working on is the best piece it can be. And this is the best way to do it. And this is quality control, and I know this is freaking great. So down the line it goes. It's called an assembly line. It's called efficiency. And this is, again, it's very obvious to anybody who's looking that that's exactly what this is. And I think Jared should have just called it like that instead of presenting it in such a strange way. Very weird. But
all right,
shall we?
Let's keep going.
American Firearms Association, and much more. They've even dipped into anti-lockdown and pro-life activism under different banners. But these aren't just organic local movements. They're centrally run by the Doors out of Iowa, and there are many stories and articles that you can easily find that show that that claim that they have created a rinse and repeat operation across at least 16 states.
See our previous remarks in our last monologue, so you guys can take a look. I will set the record straight on that. I was born and raised in Northwest Iowa. The bumper sticker is so true. It says, "Is this heaven?" right out of the Field of Dreams. No, it's Iowa. Sadly, I don't live there anymore. But it was a great place to be born and raised. In a small little Northwest Iowa town. I'd wish that childhood on anybody. So.
Well, and to clarify the record more, Chris, he kind of breezed over. I guess it was an attack, I guess, for the lockdown work that the Dorr Brothers did, for the work in pro-life that the Dorr Brothers do. So just if we're in the spot of clarifying, guilty.
I think he's gonna talk about it more here in just a second.
Oh, does he? Okay, then I'll
let it play for just a moment.
They'll sell a hardline, no compromise message, blasting even the most pro-2A lawmakers if they don't toe the Doors extreme line. And that outrage, it drives donations.
I don't want to cut off here too quick, Chris, but just want to. This is the nutshell right here. What he just said, in my opinion, this is the reason for so much animosity. If we did what everybody else says we're supposed to do, if we only attack the Democrats, if we never said anything bad about the Republicans, then guess what? Everybody would love us. All the YouTubers would love us. The gun tubers would love us. The Republicans would love us. The establishment national gun lobbies would love us. We go to those little state roundup policy conferences every year like everybody else does because it's all part of the same gig. You only attack the Democrats. And that might actually work in certain states, but it doesn't work right now in Congress. The Democrats don't control Congress. For that matter, Democrats don't control Iowa or Wyoming or Indiana or Missouri or a whole bunch of states where we work. So the disingenuous thing to do would be to blame Democrats in a place like Georgia when SB 163 died last year, except for the fact that the Democrats have no control. And that's the difference between what we're willing to do and most every other organization. They'll only ever blame the Democrats. And when you go out of your lane, that's not our lane, that's the establishment lane. When you go out of that establishment lane and you dare to say, hey, it's the Republican RINOs who are screwing us on this bill right now, that's when everybody pounces on you, because that's not how this game is supposed to be played. You're supposed to have our back as the Republican apparatus. We'll have your organization's back at the end of the session. We'll come to your event. We'll come to your shootout, your barbecue event. We'll sing your praises. You sing our praises. Doesn't matter what actually happens in Des Moines or in, insert your red state capital here, because as long as we both protect each other, that's the ultimate goal. And
well,
we knew, ever since we flipped the Iowa House in 2010, we knew, okay, well, we can't blame Democrats anymore because they're gone. They have no control. And that is the reality that most organizations just simply don't want to confront, because it is uncomfortable, because you're going to have someone like Jared come along and do a video and say, they attack pro-gun Republicans. So anyway, that's my rant. I'll stop.
Well, so Guns and Gadgets here just says, and you hear this a lot, and he's going to say it multiple times in his video. He's saying it right now, that we do all of this for money. We go after, pro-gun, Republicans, and then we just raise money. I want to be very, very, very clear. We don't raise when we attack the GOP compared to when we attack Democrats. Okay? Seriously, I love the what's the word I'm looking for? It escapes me like it escapes the cognitive dissonance of people going, they attack Republicans so they can raise a ton of money. It's like, hold on a minute here. What are you talking about? If you ask yourself this question, if you got an email during Joe Biden's presidency, maybe at the very beginning of Joe Biden's presidency, and the email said, oh my God, Joe Biden and the Democrats are going to pass a gun control bill through Congress that's going to destroy your Second Amendment rights. Please send us $25 today to help us fight for you. Is that going to maybe implore you to send money? Are you going to be motivated by that? Or are you going to go, oh, you get an email and it says the Republicans are really crummy, probably Republicans that many of our followers voted for. They're doing a deal with the Democrats, and they really suck, and they're RINOs, and they want to pass gun control, send us money. What's going to raise the coin? Democrats, every single time. So every single time we go after RINO Republicans who are screwing over gun owners, or other gun groups for that matter, we raise less money, not more money, than if we attacked Democrats and gun control organizations. So you might ask yourself, why on earth would you do that? Because that's where the fight is. At that particular moment, if we're putting pressure on, if in Ohio, which is a GOP supermajority state, if you're putting pressure on Republicans, it's because that's where the pressure belongs. You don't pressure Democrats in states with Republican supermajorities, because you're on offense trying to pass pro-gun bills. You're not on defense. So through this whole video and all this narrative about the Dorr brothers, they just attack Republicans to cause controversy, to raise money. We raise far less money going after Republicans than Democrats. And I don't have to explain that more than I have. It makes perfect sense. It's totally logical. Everybody knows that that is correct. Jared must know that that is correct. But we have to put pressure, like we said at the very beginning of this video. We pressured the NRA by flying an airplane over them when they were trying to pass red flags in 2019, pushing Trump to do so. Didn't make sense to go after Democrats. It was the NRA who was pushing Trump to pass red flag laws. So that's all I've got to say about that. I just ask that everybody keep that in mind as these talking points come out about the fundraising and about us going after Republicans, because that's the actual truth of how this game goes down in those moments.
Could not agree more. Let's hear what he has to say next. Here we go.
Plays on people's emotions, but it brings money right into the pockets of the Doors. And here's the heart of their fundraising attempts. According to IRS filings and many investigative reports, the Doors had used their nonprofits to rake in donations from well-meaning patriots like you or I. But then those nonprofits send massive amounts of money to a for-profit business that they own called Midwest Freedom Enterprises. And according to reports, between 2015 and 2020, nonprofits controlled by the Doors sent over $1.1 million to Midwest Freedom Enterprises. And that's not all. Another $300,000 was spent on management services and consulting fees. In other words, if you look at all the research that people have done, it would make it appear that the Doors collect donations under the banner of protecting your rights and then route that money to themselves.
So what I find interesting here, and we can parse this out a little bit, but what I find interesting is that he popped up the video that we shot specifically on this issue, where we explained what this is and why we don't use commercial mail shops to get to spend more of our donor dollars, and how we can severely undercut commercial rates by doing those things and accomplishing them ourselves. But he does not. He flashes it up there, our own website, with the video that explains everything right there. But then he doesn't even say. He doesn't even give our side of anything there. He simply goes right on to the talking points that all of the other organizations, all the haters, have put out there. So again, I go back to what I said, I think, towards the beginning of this video. These were all questions that I would have happily sat down and explained to him one-on-one if he simply agreed to have a discussion about this.
Just a couple of numbers here probably worth mentioning. So he says I haven't added up the math. I'm just taking him at his word here. $1.1 million to Midwest Freedom Enterprises. You know, again, the whole conversation here, there's lots of points here, but scaling is a big part of it. So we knew from day one. Let's take Ohio as an example. John Kasich was hell-bent on passing red flag gun seizures. He was this freaking close until Ohio gun owners got involved and shut that crap down. But there's no way to generate massive amounts of pressure in Columbus if you're not running a direct mail program to inform and educate and then mobilize gun owners. So we could do what everybody else does, go to some for-profit, extremely expensive, high-end, high-gloss, high-slick mail shop in some city and spend twice what we spend on our mail to have that mail go out the door. Or we could find a way to do it at scale and to do it a heck of a lot cheaper than any place else. And frankly, it is that barrier to entry, which is why you rarely see, especially in red states, state-level organizations, because they can't get off the ground. They can't find a way to get going and to keep it operational. And so 1.1 million, he says, over, what is it, 5 years? 6 years, over 6 years, divided by however many organizations he says that's being run. It's actually pretty small numbers. I have to laugh. I just have to laugh because he's talking about a grand total. What is here? 1.1 plus $1.4 million he's talking about when the whole reason why this video came out is GOA and other organizations' refusal to fight hard on the big, beautiful bill. I pulled up their 990s a few minutes ago, and just the last 3 reported years, just GOA. I didn't check FPC, NRA, anybody else. $25+ million. Just one entity. 25 million, just one entity for just the last 3 years. So he's,
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, what's sad about this, or embarrassing, if you're trying to make us embarrassed, Jared, these numbers are pitifully small.
Yeah.
And I know I can speak for all of us here. We wish these numbers were 20 times bigger, because if they were 20 times bigger, we could beat 20 times the asses that we beat in state capitals and in Congress. And maybe, just maybe, we would have actually got a meaningful, measurable win in the BBB. Now, Ben, you're going to say, you're acting too angry. And I am angry, damn it. You know, like, this is crazy. We should have been able to secure a win. And based on the budgets that these guys operate with, they should have certainly secured a win. And so when we dare call them out, here comes the gun tubers yanking about 1.4 million, when the reality is there's tens and tens and tens and tens and tens of millions raised every year, and we got nothing for it in the big, beautiful bill.
So I find it so. I think that people, I've had a revelation. I think that people like being told the truth and not having smoke blown up their. I figured that out myself.
Good job.
And what I can't stand here is, it's like, Jared, you've been in this game long enough. Like, we were watching your videos back when you were in your trailer house. Okay. Like, so you've been in this game long enough. Why do you pretend that what you've just talked about is somehow strange, abnormal, or whatever? It's like, I'm just sitting here. I pulled up, I actually chose GOA too. I hit up GOA on GuideStar, and I clicked on their 2021 990s. I mean, so we talked about Midwest Freedom Enterprises, mail shop, does cheap mail, saves lots of money for the gun groups, right? We just discussed that. $1.1 million, so they claim, going to all these different—
over 6 years.
Over 6 years, going to all the expenses of running operations. And here I just clicked on this, and it's like, here's the printing and publication. So mail for GOA in 2021 alone is $633,000. It's like, I'm not mad at them for doing mail. No. Nonprofits do mail. Why is Jared acting like, oh my God, these guys are doing mail? It's like, yes, we do mail. I mean, their total functional expenses for that year were $6 million just for 2021. And again, I don't begrudge them any of that. This is what nonprofit civil rights issue advocacy organizations do. They build lists of members, supporters, donors. They fundraise. They spend a huge amount on programs and going after politicians and elections work and legislative work.
They're supposed to.
Or they are supposed to. This is how this works. And so they don't have wins to talk about. Like Aaron just said, all this money, millions, $25 million coming in the door. And what have we gotten from Gun Owners of America? I know what we Dorr Brothers and the groups that we work with have accomplished over the last 5 years. The laws that have been passed in states all across the country. So we fundraise and we use the money for big wins. And these other organizations, in many ways, raise a bunch of money, which they are perfectly entitled to do so. And they don't have a bunch of wins to point at. So to go back to Jared, stop pretending like you're unveiling something wild here. This is what is called normal.
And again, we explained all of that in the video that he popped up there, but then did not go in and actually acknowledge.
All of that was on the Midwest Freedom Enterprises website, and he goes, "Oh, here it is." I'm not going to click the video. We don't want to see what that says.
Yeah. So, let's let him talk some more.
Now, when COVID hit in 2020, they pivoted fast. The Doors launched Facebook groups pushing for reopen protests in states like Pennsylvania, Ohio, Minnesota, New York, and Wisconsin. And those groups ballooned. They grew huge, almost overnight, hundreds of thousands of followers. They looked like they were grassroots, but they were all linked back to the same network, the same digital infrastructure, the same fundraising tactics. It was just a new lane to push donations and political influence, it seems.
I cannot understand what the he's trying to portray here, what point he's trying to make. And I apologize for the profanity. Actually, I don't, because these freaking tyrants locked down this country. They murdered my grandpa, our grandpa, and they deserve punishment for what they did. We are absolutely 100% proud of the fact that we were able to pivot very quickly. Because we work with these politicians and these scumbags on a daily basis, we knew exactly what they would do, what tyrannical people in positions of power would do if they were given the excuse to accumulate and grab massive amounts of power. We instantly pivoted, just like he said, and utilized the tools that we have developed over the years to try to fan the flames of resistance to the tyrannical lockdowns. And somehow he pivots and says that we had a financial motive when that was not a financial thing. We wanted to just fight for freedom, like millions of other people wanted to do, but didn't have the tools or platforms to do it with. So
they were asking us to. Our gun rights members were coming to us going, fucking help us, please, help. And we had this discussion. I remember the phone call vividly in January of 2020. Like, oh my God, COVID's here. It's coming over from China. And we had this phone call and he said, I don't know how dangerous this is going to be, but we know this is going to be the biggest power grab in the history of mankind. We knew that in January of 2020. And so we used the resources, the skill that we have acquired to help the people who are pissed off about being locked up, locked in, suicide rates through the roof because of the depression that set in and people's worlds being rocked. And we launched some Facebook groups and said, get on board and let's protest. Let's get after it. Let's stop the lockdowns. I didn't see Jared. I didn't see Guns and Gadgets standing in front of Governor Walz's mansion and in front of the Capitol protesting the lockdowns when it was very dangerous socially to do so. I didn't see Jared out in front of the Pennsylvania state capitol where Chris was with a whole ton of patriots fighting against the lockdowns and saying, end what's happened here and let us return to our lives. We didn't raise a dime because of that. How many people joined an anti-lockdown group and then started throwing money at the Second Amendment? None. Nobody. That was not the point. The point was we need to save our country. And frankly, other than the anti-lockdown, which gave us the idea, actually, the protests that took place in Lansing, Michigan. You remember, like 10,000 cars, gridlock. They called it Operation Gridlock, and it was that Facebook group. Michiganders Against Excessive Quarantine. That was the name of their group on Facebook. It got taken down, and we said we should do this everywhere to give everybody a chance to show the entire country that we're not being locked down. And we did it, and we did it so well. And it's one of my proudest moments.
Absolutely.
I'm so proud to have done that because even I, at that time, felt powerless to stop what was happening in our country, but I was doing the best I could for the people who were relying on me. So there we were fighting the lockdowns, protests. I'm over in Madison, Wisconsin, and I see my address in the top of the comments on a Minneapolis Star Tribune article.
Yeah, you took my line. I was going right there. Do it.
Ben Dorr's address. Let's go to his house and f him up. And there was 160 thumbs up on the comment. And my wife was home with our 2 boys, and she was 9 months pregnant. Her water broke. I was driving back from Madison while the baby was coming. And I get a phone call saying, our lives are at risk here now, I guess. People are coming to the house. So I called the police department. Hey, would you mind doing a little drive around the house there? If you see anybody in the front yard with signs, please know that they're not invited and they need to get off our property. And I hauled ass back home after 10,000 people showed up in Madison. It was an enormous sacrifice socially, being attacked by everybody for what we did, but we're very proud of it. And I will tell my grandchildren that Grandpa stood up in one of the most insane moments in the history of mankind and said, not putting up with this crap. And so, Jared, I don't know where the hell you were 5 years ago, but we were on the front steps of state capitals all across the country representing new people who needed a voice, who were being crushed by social media, who couldn't say anything they wanted to, and we were giving them an opportunity to tell the government to go screw off. You cannot lock us down. You cannot shut us up. We're not staying home. And in the end, everything that we said about COVID was proven to be true. Everything we said about the power grab, about the vax, about all this was proven to be completely true. And we fought against it from the outset. So I know that was a rant and a tangent there, but of all the things that Jared said on this topic, and I remember the time so well, to attack us for fighting against the lockdowns is perhaps the most demonstrably preposterous thing he could have said.
He probably is on injection number 5 or 6 in the process. One of the best things that resulted, like you said, we threw these rallies, these operation lockdowns in. One of them was Pennsylvania. And one of the big benefits of juicing that rally as hard as we could, we probably had 15,000 people turned out all over the state capitol building. We're driving around downtown Harrisburg. One of the biggest things, because everybody was able to get together and finally realize that they're not the only people that felt the way that they felt. They could see all of these other patriots that were like, no, screw this. We're not going to do it. We're freaking Americans. We don't live by the dictates of a freaking king. And one of the biggest things that came out of Pennsylvania, I'll use this as an example, was we then went on to legislatively, and then by a vote of the people, strip the governor of his ability. And at the time it was Tom Wolf, stripped the governor of his ability to issue these broad lockdowns without legislative approval. In other words, we took the power right from the tyrant and put it right back to the people. And again, I didn't see Jared there. I didn't see anybody else there. I didn't see anybody else leverage the tools that they had developed to fight back against this stuff. We did. And we're very proud of that. Like Ben said, we'll look back in history and tell our kids and grandkids about what we did. And of course, I think Ben undersold the personal attacks. I mean, obviously, I had an extreme example there, but every single national news media outlet that you can think of, and not just national, but global, were doing hit stories on us and the tools that we were employing. They were trying to get Facebook to shut us down. And we just went, hey, diddle, diddle, right up the middle, because we knew exactly the tyrants that we were dealing with.
Well, and just to be clear, it's just the same as like going after the Republicans in a red state. We didn't do this and then find out later, oh, shit, we're going to get attacked by everybody when we do this. Right. We knew in advance all this crap was going to come back immediately. So we knew that we were going to get doxxed. We knew we were going to have, the death threats on Facebook Messenger alone to our organizations, half the number in the scores and scores and scores. The private messages, separate from the big posts like Ben's talking about. We knew it was going to happen, and we knew, and unfortunately it did happen, that we were going to probably have organizations that we used as vendors drop us because they were getting pressure from these commies to say, you can't platform the Dorr Brothers. That happened too. And we knew it was going to happen as we were going through family interactions with family members who were dealing with COVID. We took all that right on the chin. We never skipped a beat. All of our platforms ran seamlessly despite all the attempts from the left to shut us down. And I don't have a number handy, but besides just organizing the rallies, the hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of emails that our tools allowed Americans to pour into state capitals to say, back off. is a massive amount of information that we were able to get from the people. And the other thing too is that we do spend money wisely, so doing Facebook pages on the Second Amendment. I don't believe, I know I didn't, we didn't spend a dime that I know of on these pages. And the reason for it is that, not that we wouldn't have, but freedom was really popular at that time. People were flocking to these pages because they wanted to have a place, they wanted to have a way to make their voice heard, and nobody else would give them that. And so it was not lost on us that this is all going to happen at the same time. And Ben mentioned the one major attack on his family, but there was dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of one-off I'm going to kill you messages to our Facebook pages across the states. And again, to your point, never saw Jared out there. And frankly, we didn't see, I don't think we saw any of the conservative influencer crowd that is so prevalent and so hot right now on social media. Maybe there were some exceptions, but most all of the big conservative influencer pages I see today, I didn't see them trying to avoid or stop the worst attack on civil freedoms in this country since the Civil War during the lockdowns at all.
Because again, just like we talked about at the beginning, timeline matters. When this all happened matters. We're talking about April of 2020. April of 2020. Nobody was questioning this stuff. Not on the right, not on the left. As always, it's the everyday people who did not like what was happening, who wanted a voice to fight against this crap. Always. That's what it was during COVID. That's the way it is now during the gunfight. They want somebody to represent them accurately and to stop screwing them over on behalf of the politicians and on behalf of fake wins. They want to know that somebody's fighting for them. And we fought before anybody else. I mean, heck, there were some gun owners who were messaging us, members of our organizations, dropping their membership at that time because they were convinced that COVID was going to take us all out. They were convinced of it. And we said, look, don't think so. Don't think so. Also, they're going to strip us of all of our freedom, and we're not going to let it happen if we can stop it. And so we didn't raise money. We lost money. But actually, two different members came back to me after the fact, months later, and apologized. Said I was wrong. I was wrong. I drank that Kool-Aid at the beginning. I figured it out. I'm sorry, and I rejoined. But there was a price paid at the beginning. And it was one we were happy to pay, and there was no gain other than freedom, and I guess some stories, like I said, to tell the grandkids later about the work Grandpa did.
Sometime we'll have to do another video just on that and everything that happened and went down during that time. But there was also the practical side of things, the precedent that was being set to use medical emergencies or declared emergencies in order to strip away civil freedoms was a massive thing, shutting down worship services. And in Pennsylvania, you had this big, giant Dick Levine dude dressed as a woman telling everybody that they couldn't go and worship God, as if the Christian church had never experienced a plague in their life. But we could see anybody who had a mind for these things could understand that if this precedent wasn't pushed back against, that it would be massively expanded in the future. And that threat still exists now, but it could have been a lot worse if we didn't sit there and say, you know what, let's try to voice these people. Let's give them a platform to coalesce around, to unite together and jump into the fight with each other on. So I think I don't know. Should we let them talk again?
Well, let me make one last point very quickly. We were also very cognizant of the fact during COVID that having a mail shop meant that we could not have our voices suppressed. Yes. When Facebook was deleting everybody, online, we had groups, we had Facebook pages on different things talking about Trump, and they erased them all. Everybody got black holed, everybody got memory holed, and all of this stuff disappeared. And so they were shutting us down. We were being, like Aaron said, being deplatformed left and right from online services for being opposed to the lockdowns. And it was again, because we had a mail shop that we weren't completely shut down and made dead in the water by the leftist regime. That was their entire intention. Bankrupt the little guy, shut up everybody's voices, deplatform anybody who disagrees with our position on this, call everybody a menace and a danger to society. And because we had set up the infrastructure in advance that we were able to weather that storm and come out ahead and keep doing what we do. So
all those
Ben, I'm just going to brag about the rabbit trail to your rabbit trail, which is the mail shop. Like, we got wind that there were possible supply chain shortages coming from an inside buddy in the industry, basically. And this is before everyone knew you couldn't buy a damn thing anywhere, for the longest time. And we thought, if we could not possibly, could it possibly be we couldn't get paper? That surely couldn't happen, right? But we knew if we lost paper, we couldn't run mail, we couldn't organize gun owners, and we couldn't do the job that we're supposed to do. So we went out there, and all of a sudden, like, we made one huge order of product right away to get that stuff in the office. But then we heard about another concern that paper wasn't going to be as big a problem, but you're never, ever going to see envelopes for like 6 months or more. And the thing is, that's exactly what happened. There was a 6-month window there where you could find some crazy color crap at Best Buy in a box of $250, but we were trying to figure out how are we going to continue the work of organizing gun owners. And we finally found one of the other Dorr brothers who couldn't be on the show here. We called around to everybody, called all over the Southeast, called out to the Pacific Northwest, everywhere in between, and he found a vendor, and we picked up an entire, I just love discussing these stupid details. An entire semi load of envelopes came to our print shop, our mail shop, and we had all our guys out there. We were unloading stuff, and it was just like we scored huge because we were not able to be shut down even by the supply chain problems. I know it's a rabbit trail, but gosh, that was fun stuff because we could see it coming.
I kind of felt like Sam Adams at the time.
Yeah, and we had a plan for it. And
we're proud as hell of it because we were watching everybody else get their Facebook posts throttled and taken down and banned and all that stuff. Anytime they voice any kind of opposition to the regime that was underway at the time. So, all right, let's jump back into him. Hear what else he has to say.
Now, this isn't just coming from the left, these allegations. There's pro-gun lawmakers and pro-gun life groups and conservatives have been sounding the alarm on the Dorr brothers for years. I'm not just making this stuff up. I'm actually just telling you what's out there. In 2017, Iowa State Representative Matt WindShitL, I hope I said his name right, he was a pro-gun Republican, but he called Aaron Dorr a, quote, scam artist, end quote. And that was on the House floor. And then in Minnesota,
hold on.
No, this is my guy. So it is a complicated name to pronounce sometimes. The easiest way is to do it phonetically. WindShitL. That's how people say it for the most part in Iowa. So Jared, next time you do one, do that.
WindShitL.
So this guy, and Chris, you were with me in the early days in Iowa Gun Owners. This guy was our best bro when the Republicans were in the minority, helping us work on constitutional carry. All this, he was definitely trying to help advance the agenda. And then a curious thing happened. 2010, Iowa gun owners and gun owners in general flipped the Iowa House, took out, I think it was 23 incumbent Democrats. It was an absolute bloodbath that we were the ones holding the sword when it was all said and done. Immediately, with the GOP in charge, all of their promises about doing things like passing constitutional carry, ending taxpayer-funded abortion, and much, much more were immediately forgotten about. And so we were called into the office. I mean, I was in Linda Upmeyer's office. I was in Craig Paulson's office. We got talked to by Matt multiple times, and it was always the same deal. And it's frankly the same deal that every organization gets offered every time they get, enough size to be dangerous to the establishment. It's just like, look, give us a couple years. We'll take care of this. And meantime, we will go to your fundraising events and we will brag about you to your donors and we'll protect you. We'll protect
the speaker.
Yeah, the Speaker of the House. And so if you're a normal, like, access-based kiss-ass lobbyist, when the leadership team offers to send their entire delegation to your event and brag about what an awesome guy you are, you're going to take the deal. And we told them absolutely no. We wanted constitutional carry. You guys promised constitutional carry. Pay up or get beat. And that's exactly what they did not do, and we did then do it. So we then forced a vote on the floor of the Iowa House using a champion for gun rights at that time, Tom Shaw, one of the best of his era in Des Moines.
Definitely.
And we used procedural rules to force the Republicans to advance constitutional carry. It was very simple. They just voted yes. It had been a done deal and passed over to the Senate chamber. Instead, WindShitL voted no. And the leadership team voted no, and the bill actually died. And so, and the same thing happened with taxpayer-funded abortion. Pro-lifers, of which we are all three, wanted to see that crap ended in Iowa as well. That didn't happen either because Matt WindShitL voted no. And so we then...
This is my favorite part. This is my favorite part.
So we're like, okay, we got to blow this crap up. Now, we all come from Western Iowa. We know Western Iowa. We know how people think in Western Iowa. Western Iowa is God's country. Think Steve King, style country. And so we rolled out to his district, WindShitL's district. We had about, 15, 20 hardy folks with us. And we went door to freaking door in every single town in Matt WindShitL's district and passed out flyers telling everybody that this guy who had been good on these issues now had turned his back on both of them because they were in leadership. And all of a sudden, the PACs and the lobbies are pressuring them to forget all those campaign promises. And so that sort of kind of got us off of Matt WindShitL's Christmas card list. And again, every bit of that was known in advance. We knew exactly what that was going to do, but it was either we fight all the way through, or we sit there and shut up like every other lobby organization, and then maybe 10 years later, they'd actually pass the freaking bill. And so we did what we always do, mounted a massive amount of political pain. And by gosh, they did eventually end taxpayer funding for abortion in Iowa. We did pass constitutional carry, but it's not even that simple, because when we passed Stand Your Ground law in 2017 in Iowa, we have been working on that fight for years and years and years in Des Moines. We had a beautiful bill on Stand Your Ground law ready to go. Matt WindShitL, I remember this because just yesterday, he takes that bill in a committee, and I was in the committee room, and he takes an absolute sledgehammer to it. He destroys all the best parts of the bill, or many of the best parts of the bill. And so while we do have Stand Your Ground law in Iowa today, it's a very weakened version. There is no pretrial immunity hearings. There is no way to have a guarantee of asserting these privileges. There's a presumption that you're guilty still in Iowa, in a red state. And these are the kind of things you have to choose. Are you going to call them out or let it go? And if we called them out, we knew this was going to happen, but we'd get the policy win eventually. If you let it go, like everybody else does, you get screwed. So that's Matt WindShitL. And, the thing is that, this is sad, I think, to report, but, we told the guy, man, you're an ego-tripping maniac, and one day this crap's going to blow up in your face, bro. And that's exactly what happened. Sadly, I don't know the details. No one probably does, but his family life got destroyed, and all was sacrificed on the altar of politics. And it was a terrible thing to watch happen to a guy who, frankly, knew a lot better and knew what to avoid and chose not to do it.
So two things. Number one, Jared piping this out here and saying that this pro-gun legislator, this politician that he's probably never met in real life, he's never had a conversation with, but just like the absolute naivete of all of a sudden taking the words of a politician and holding them up as somehow a gospel standard by which to judge the work that we've been doing it's absolutely preposterous. But it also shows that this guy has never been in the political situation that you get into as a gun rights organization many, many times. Like Aaron just explained there, a lot of times what happens when you have Republicans in the minority, they are right-wing flamethrowers because they want to get that majority. But the moment they get that majority, they turn right around and begin to work on the organizations whose members were involved heavily in retaking that majority, and they begin to work on the leadership to try to convince them to, instead of continuing to represent their members to the legislative class, to the political class, they want you to turn around and instead start representing the politicians back to your membership and telling them what you all have to settle for. And if you've watched my videos before, you've heard me talk about this many times. That's exactly what Matt WindShitL did. But for Jared to sit here and say, this politician who I've never met before said X, Y, or Z, so it must be the case, shows just what a bubble the gun tuber world can sometimes live in. And for a guy who says that he's in contact with these organizations on a constant basis, for him to just sit there and lap up and say, oh, yeah, well, this guy said it, it must be true. It's just absolutely preposterous. What Aaron, those examples that Aaron gave of constitutional carry getting watered down, anybody who's involved with Ohio gun owners knows that's exactly what they did on our now permitless carry bill. That's exactly what they did on our stand your ground bill. We don't have all those protections until you're actually getting victimized a second time by being dragged into court. But he doesn't even know all that. Or maybe he does and just doesn't. He just continues that pattern that he's had in this video of treating you as low information, stupid gun owners who can just be, all you're good for is a click on his video.
Well, I just want to mention here that I think that Jared's the one who's just completely low information here. So Jared, you're clearly at this part of the video right now, Jared, and you're watching this. Surely you can see now that you totally lack the depth of knowledge that you hoped you had when you just did some Google searches. I know that the Trace and NBC and a lot of these places have done these, hit pieces on us over the years, and you read a bunch of them and thought that you sort of got this picture of who the Dorr brothers were and how our work works. But I hope you're seeing now that 15 years of activism and stories like Aaron's sharing from, that's a 15-year-old story that led to finally Iowa passing these great laws, but legislators who we had to paddle, well, when the laws were finally getting passed, they had to get their shot in, and he stood up there and went, has anybody heard from Aaron Dorr? Not a soul. Not a soul. See, not a hand. It's like, yeah, he's gonna take his shot because we spanked him like a child to get the laws passed. That's how that works.
I gotta say, I was there in the gallery and I'm watching. This is so freaking hilarious. This guy, I will give Matt WindShitL credit for one big thing. The guy has had, not so much recently, but traditionally, he's had phenomenal hair. I ain't gonna lie, he's got a great head of hair. And so he loves to preen in the mirror. He loves to work it and gel it and style it. And so I knew he's gonna hit me.
And I know that for a certainty because I used to be an aide in the Iowa Senate at the same time that WindShitL was over on the House side. So if you go into one of the legislator or legislative staffing bathrooms, you could literally see this guy working the grease into his hair on a routine basis. This is not just conjecture. I physically saw it.
So after we crucified Senate Democrats in 2016, flipped that chamber, and we're finally going to ram through stand your ground law, admittedly after they had weakened it, unfortunately, substantially in the House side and committee. I'm up there in what we call the perch. Now, if you've ever been in the Iowa Capitol, first of all, it's just beautiful. It's just stunningly gorgeous in many ways. But the House side, the perch is up on the third floor. It's on the backside facing the speaker's well. And the reason why I always hung out in the perch when I was watching floor action, it's a very simple reason. It has the best air conditioning vent in the entire freaking building. And some of the Iowans, I guess, want to crank the heat up. So in January or February or March during session, it's like 1,000,000 degrees there. I'm in the perch. I know what's going to happen. WindShitL's going to start attacking me by name. So I walk right up against the edge of the perch as he's looking up at me, pointing, and I'm like, preening my hair. And he like chokes up and doesn't even know how to quite continue going with his story. And I just like, man, like this guy, his ego is so big, and it just cracks me up. But we got that done in no small part because we were willing to go all the way, call him out, and attack his entire caucus, frankly, or at least the leadership team who was trying to hold back these bills. I mean, for gosh sakes, we had J. Rodney Lewis. Here's a guy who was victimized by the prosecutor in Polk County. He shoots a guy who was trying to kill him. He gets arrested. He goes to jail for 112 days, finally gets his day in court, found not guilty. We take him down to the Capitol. At this point, he's homeless, jobless, broke, cut off from his family because we didn't have stand your ground law. And we're like, dude, you guys ever going to pass stand your ground law or not?
He had all of his guns stolen.
What's that?
And had all of his guns stolen.
All his guns. Yeah. And but these are all the stories that, yeah, to your point, Chris or Ben or both of you, if you don't actually do gun politics, if you just talk about gun politics in your studio, if you're never actually in a state capitol, if you're never actually working in a committee room, you have no idea what the hell goes on. And you've got no idea what it actually takes to move bills. You're going to make enemies if you get involved in grassroots politics. And over time, you're going to lose some friends. Although if you lose friends over this, your friends sucked anyway. So that is the deal with WindShitL. And we're so freaking proud that, to your point earlier, Ben, man, the successes of Iowa are now the stuff literally of legends. And there's articles all over now. What happened to Iowa? This blue state bastion that carried Obama twice. That was a hardcore leftist Democrat state in 2008. It is as red as the Nile River because the political blood of so many Democrats flew down the Raccoon River right next to Des Moines, and Iowa is now a beautiful pro-gun state. And it began, and it was always there because of the work and the members of Iowa gun owners who are willing to go head-to-head with Republicans as necessary. I'll stop.
Wouldn't it have been cool if Jared from Guns and Gadgets could have sat down and said, hey, got this legislator, who talked to you guys like 6 or 7 years ago.
Backstory.
What was that all about? Yeah. And if you sit there and go, well, then, there's probably some smoke. But there was a great story here, a completely factual story, and with great laws that got passed, which I know Jared supports constitutional carry. I know he supports stand your ground law. I know that Jared from Guns and Gadgets is an actually pro-gun guy. Why wouldn't you interview and talk with us about the great pro-gun bills that we've helped pass? It's just I'm really enjoying this video, but I'm actually sad at the same time because it could have been a lot different. Could have been a lot more fun being interviewed. And anyway, go ahead.
All right, so I'm going to hit play on him again, but just to encapsulate that, we went after Matt WindShitL because he had choked on guns, and because, and maybe we didn't say this from the outset, but we are 100% unapologetically pro-life. All of us Dorr brothers are that, and we have a long life history of pro-life activism. So when he sat down in that conference committee and negotiated taxpayer funding for abortion, we went after him in his district to his voters to make sure they knew exactly what they had elected, and so that they could make the decision if they wanted to replace him at some point down the road. When you take action, direct action like that, it is politically painful. And so it's no wonder that guys like Matt WindShitL will take a cheap shot the moment they get the opportunity. Just so happens that Jared doesn't know any of this or put it out of his mind and got suckered into it. So let's keep going here with the next part, which I think involves you, Ben.
The largest pro-life group publicly labeled the Dorr Brothers' counterpart, Minnesota Right to Life, as a fake door operation designed to confuse voters and funnel funds. Now, these are some people a lot bigger than I am.
Ben?
Well, I don't know what that last part means. Look, this is, I love this story. I've told it many times on video. I'll tell it again here. So Minnesota Right to Life, I'm the executive director of that organization. Again, we grew up in front of Planned Parenthood. We grew up Aaron and Chris in the 80s, they're a lot older than I am, freaking old guys. Me in the late 90s, when I grew up, stood in front of Planned Parenthood and tried to talk girls out of going in there and killing their babies. It was a big thing for our family. It always has been, always will be. Now we're trying to get pro-life laws passed and repeal, stop abortion laws, and do this in a larger scale, right? If you can stand in front of an abortion clinic, God help you and God bless you. You can save 1 or 2 or 3 babies, maybe. But if you can get an abortion law overturned, you can save tens of thousands per year, right? And if you can stop abortion laws from passing, you can keep restrictions in place, and you can save babies this way. So we launched Minnesota Right to Life for one reason. The very organization that Jared mentioned here is called Minnesota Citizens Concerned for Life. And their executive director was a guy named Scott Fischbach. His wife, Michelle Fischbach, was a state senator in the state of Minnesota, and the entire Republican apparatus was voting for taxpayer-funded abortions every 2 years since 1995. Nobody knew about it. Pro-lifers had no clue how abortion was being funded in the state of Minnesota. And this guy who runs the largest pro-life organization in the state, his wife is voting for abortion funding in the Minnesota Senate. It was Senate File 2, and she voted for it on May 25, 27. It was May 25, 6 or 7. It was one of those 3-4 days right there.
May, I remember that.
In 2017, she voted for this abortion funding, and more than 10,000 babies a year were being killed in the state of Minnesota. So I'm up there every day with Minnesota gun rights, and we're fighting for these gun laws, and we're trying to stop the bad ones. And I'm just watching these abortion laws get passed. I'm watching this abortion funding get passed, and it's incensing me. I'm freaking furious. I'm calling Chris on the way home. They're passing this abortion funding again, and nobody is saying a word about it. So we launched Minnesota Right to Life, and I drove up to the Capitol on their pro-life day, right? Yeah, every year you got a pro-life march, and I stuck a camera in Scott Fischbach's face. We could probably actually overlay that video on this if we want to. I'll talk to the editor. And I stuck a camera in his face, and I said, Scott, why is your organization supporting Republicans who are voting to give money to Planned Parenthood and kill babies? At that time, Scott's wife, Michelle, was running for Congress. And those who know her now know her as Congresswoman Michelle Fischbach. And I said, why are you run the group and you're endorsing your own wife, which seems a little sus, who voted for taxpayer-funded abortions. Do you have an answer to that? And he goes, "Oh, I've seen some of your videos, and you put out some silly." And his wife is like yanking on his arm. Michelle's like, "We gotta go, Scott. We gotta go." And the two of them like run off together through the Capitol, key card their way into a room, and they run away as quickly as possible. That is how Minnesota Right to Life was born. We were pointing out how the state of Minnesota was funding the death of 10,000 babies. It's now up to 12,500 babies a year in the state of Minnesota. And they're passing these abortion laws, and MCCL is supporting these Republicans who are voting for abortion funding. So once again, we're faced with a choice. I can say nothing. We can say nothing, and I can just fundraise all day long.
Democrats, Ben.
Democrats are bad. Democrats want abortion. Send us money so we can fight the Democrats. The Democrats want to kill babies, and I'm telling you, you can raise money hand over fist if you do that crap. Yep. Ask MCCL. They've been raising well over $1 million per year in the state of Minnesota alone by simply going, Democrats are bad, Republicans are good. We don't raise a fraction of that.
Meanwhile, when Republicans had the majority, they were literally the ones sitting there voting for taxpayer-funded abortions.
Yes.
You see how the game works here?
So what do you think MCCL is going to do? They're going to come out and they're going to go, don't trust Minnesota Right to Life. They're scammers and con artists. Trust MCCL. We've been here for 55 years fighting the good fight. We've raised, I don't know, $100 million in our state, in our little state group's existence. And we are supporting people who vote for taxpayer-funded abortions. But don't trust the Dorr Brothers. They're the actual scammers. And so look, Michelle Fischbach is now Congresswoman Michelle Fischbach, and Scott Fischbach, he's been promoted. He's now the executive director of National Right to Life. So look how the Fischbachs have grown in power and money on the backs of the pro-life movement while supporting taxpayer-funded abortions. And I just found out 10 minutes ago that Michelle Fischbach today voted against releasing the Epstein files. So you know exactly what kind of congresswoman she has turned out to be. But of course, Jared has no idea. Jared with Guns and Gadgets sees some news article, sees some video someplace and goes, oh my gosh, I've got to talk about this. This group is bigger than me. They said that they're a scam. They're the ones supporting abortion. We're not. That's the simple answer to the whole thing. And we will not. You know why? Because we didn't get into this because, oh, I want to be the next executive director of this big group like Scott Fischbach. Didn't get into this because, oh, if I run for the state house, well, then I can run for the Senate, and then I can be a senator, and then after that, I can run for Congress, and I can be a really big deal in Congress. And they have this crap planned out in advance. It's their life goal to be big and powerful and rich, and they will utilize and stomp on the pro-life movement all the way to the top. And that's what MCCL has done. So there, Jared, there's the history lesson that you knew nothing about and didn't bother to dig into before you shot your video, which I want to point out a lot of the points that Jared with Guns and Gadgets is making. You can sort of sense his lack of confidence in what he's saying. He's kind of halting. He's like, I've seen this, but he doesn't know. He knows he doesn't know. He's talking about stuff that he knows there's a story behind and that there's history to, but he talked about it anyway. So I would have loved to have told you this story, Jared, if you had interviewed or if you had even messaged with a question. But that's it's just one.
Well, to your point, Ben, there's so many more stories like this. I mean, like the Chris and Kyle Kaler story in Ohio. My gosh, that's like 2 hours right there. The Mark Jennings and Aaron story in Wyoming. There's 2 hours right there. There is a punk that we have had to get aggressive with in every state, usually dozens of punks all across the country that always go crazy, get angry, get mad. A lot of them are out of office now. A lot of them didn't always make it through a primary. You know, that happens, you know. But all these stories, man, there's so much out there. Happy to talk about. But yeah, to your point, he's never bothered to ask. And we got to do some more of these kind of podcasts ourselves then, I guess, and talk about some of these fun wins because, gosh, yeah. And Ben, I was just hitting on Twitter as you're talking about Fischbach, and you mentioned this in case anybody missed it. There's only 7 Republicans in the entire Republican conference in D.C. today who voted no on releasing the Epstein files. Just 7. One was Michelle Fischbach. That's it. So she is in a very, very tight space trying to protect.
Makes you wonder.
The Epstein. Yeah, it makes you wonder.
Makes you wonder. I always wondered about Scott anyway, but all of these stories are only things that you can know by getting out of your studios and getting down into the nitty-gritty in the committee rooms, in the hallways, in the Capitol buildings. You cannot understand a lot of this if you simply sit there from your tower and observe from the outside. And that's exactly the way that the political class wants to keep it. They absolutely hate the fact that the Dorr Brothers externalize the conversations that are happening under those golden domes, in those state houses, in those state capitol buildings. They hate the fact that we will walk up to a legislator on camera and then pump that information out to their districts so that their districts know exactly where that legislator is or what they're not doing or how they're lying to them. And the political class definitely wants to keep it that way. That centralizes their power, and it restores that default in a current default in America, where these politicians think that they're the boss and that you, the people, simply work for them. And we take that entire dichotomy, we throw it on, we flip that table right over, and we put the power right back with the people. We truly believe in the principles that our founding fathers gave us when they said that we are a people governed by consent of the governed. That's where the power of the politicians is derived. And we work very hard to implement that and make that the default by which we approach politics. You know, a politician can say, have you ever been contacted by X, Y, or Z lobbyist? Well, we don't have to talk with every single legislator in a building. What we can do is put our members in that person's district on their tail, on their case, equip them with the tools to be in direct contact with them so that they don't have to hear from a lobbyist that's walking in the hallways. They can hear from their districts back home. That's putting the power back in the district, back with we the people, where it belongs, and the political class hates that. They hate that. And that's why they
literally no
right
other
around
organization does this. That's the difference between us and GOA, FPC, everybody else. You don't see these people in state capitals. You don't see these people almost at all, like literally almost at all. I've never one time seen these people confront a legislator who is doing the wrong thing. They don't do that. That's too dirty for them. You know, and then those politicians in turn don't fear them. But if you can get in a politician's face, if you can put your members in contact with them, all of a sudden the worry really kicks up. And these politicians have to start doing what they're told by their base, by the people who put them in office, or else there's consequences politically. And this is how we've won so much in so many places over the years, is because this model works, requires, a little bit of social brass, requires a little bit of stick and power, and some balls, to make it happen. And I've had men, women, ladies, supporters come up to the Capitol with me and do this with me because they love it so much. Like, hey, when are you going to the Capitol to bust some balls? I want to come up there and do it with you. And I've had teams of just random supporters online who would show up and watch or participate, and they're emboldened, and now they've got some fight and some oomph behind them because they're watching it happen. But all these other $25 million organizations and Jared with guns and gadgets either won't do it, but they don't do it, and then they attack us for doing it. It's ridiculous.
The other half of that coin, I just want to mention this too, that's the legislative side. We haven't even mentioned the election side. We haven't even mentioned where the real, sometimes the best work, the best lobbying is in the elections, primaries in a red state, generals in a blue state, because that's where, you know what, if you're not going to listen to me in committee, if you're not going to listen to our members on the floor, maybe you'll get kicked out of office by your voters at election time. And this is where I literally lose my mind, because talking about raising $25 million in 2 or 3 years. Most of these national, and some of them raise 10 times that, just to be clear. We're not just talking about one organization here. Chris mentions lawsuit shops. That's the whole freaking point. I've never seen these organizations do TV ads. I've almost never heard them do, in the last 18 years I've been doing this, almost never heard a radio ad. I never see a digital ad in districts at the state level, in particular at election time, calling people out. The only thing we ever get is an orange postcard from the NRA, and you'll get a rating meme from GOA. And usually that's bullshit anyway, because they don't know what's actually happened in committee or what actually happened on the floor. They hit Legiscan, they get a roll call vote on the big gun bill of the year, they score that, and they move on. And so if you're not actually working in these districts in the election season, you're not going to ever terrify anybody and you won't change anything. If you don't have them afraid of your organization, nothing ever changes. I was trying to do the math in my head on this, and I can't really remember it, but I know that in the primary election cycle last year, just the states that I primarily focus on, just in the primaries, we did full on video, text message, email programs, and digital on at least 75 different races just between 4 states that come to mind. And that's just what I was working on in those states for the August primary. Then there was the June primaries. Then there was the May primaries. Hell, there was the March primaries. And that's not even counting the general election. That's not counting Chris. It ain't counting Alex. And it ain't counting you, Ben. And so if you don't ever do the work at the election season, no one's ever afraid of you. Why the hell should they be? But here's the deal about spending money at election time. It is all money out. There is no money that comes in.
Exactly.
And that's why most organizations refuse to ever do it. Because what Ben said, half an hour ago was spot on. 2021, Biden's new in his tenure in the White House. You put out an email saying, help us. Biden's going to take away our gun rights. You're going to raise money. And all those groups did. And we did too, to a degree. But at election time, especially in a primary, if you're going after an incumbent, especially, boy, that is a lonely road. And that is one-way money. That money goes out. It does not come back in. But if you don't do it, you're a chump like everybody else. So Ben does the best job of anybody, Ben and Chris on the videos in their face in the Capitol. But damn, the election program that we collectively run and our team runs, our digital people, our social media people, our graphics people, our email team, those programs at election time, those deliver lethal cuts in the primaries and lethal cuts in the general election. I've never ever seen one of these national organizations do anything at the state level except for a postcard, which is like the 90s are calling. They want their cardstock paperback or a rating meme. It's ridiculous. And it's not ridiculous. It's intentional because, again, those programs cost real money and it's not money coming back at you.
I'm guessing, Jared, with Guns and Gadgets, you didn't see any of this on a news article someplace, and you didn't see this on some random video that you watched. It's so, his video is so unbelievably surface level and lacks literally 99% of all the context. It's embarrassing. It's really embarrassing. So you didn't see any of this stuff, did you? You probably don't live in any of the districts that we've run these ads in. I myself, I think it was 28 districts that I got involved in with the organizations that I work with. It was a big deal. Spent a lot of money. And again, we got none of that money back. But Jared, with Guns and Gadgets, you didn't see any of that.
That's why we fundraise. That's literally why we fundraise.
That's the point. That's the point. I'm not even angry. I'm just disappointed in you, Jared.
I got time for a quick little case study, Indiana case study. It's like 2 minutes long, minute long. We're getting low on time here.
People are out of popcorn. You'll probably get the chance.
We'll do it later.
I just want to hit play.
We'll do it.
All right, here we go. Let's see what else he has to say.
And users on gun forums like Reddit have posted issues and brought receipts calling out the Doors for personally profiting off of their quote-unquote alleged fake activism while doing next to nothing in terms of actual lobbying or lawmaking.
That's exactly where I go for all of my hard sources, Reddit.
Even my friend Liberty Doll reported on yet another red flag with the Dorr Brothers. Her video, I'll link it down below. Watch it. She outlines a bunch of this stuff.
That would be like a car. I mean, if you wanted to get our reaction to the Liberty Doll, Liberty Bimbo video, you can just rewatch this one because it's exactly the exact same story. So
because she got her information from the exact same place.
Exactly.
Yep. With Guns and Gadgets got it from. I read an article from the Trace and NBC and the Daily Beast, and I watched this video, and I went to this website that doesn't like the Doors, and I read all of it. Now I know. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. So anyway, that's not a source.
So the Gun Rights had their 501c4 nonprofit status revoked by the IRS back in 2016 for failure to file. Yet they kept fundraising and kept soliciting donations as if nothing happened.
Okay. Paperwork is a big sometimes. And less than 2 weeks later, all the correct paperwork had been refiled with the IRS. And not only that, but the IRS fully reinstated everything, and which means they examined everything themselves. So good sleuthing on that one. We published the 990s right on MGR's website for everybody to take a look at. So we'll keep on going.
Now, there's a website in which you can check on nonprofits to see if they have filed with the registered with the IRS. And I started checking on their 16 that are currently listed on their websites, the 16 nonprofits they have in different states. And there are still some that are not listed on that website as far as being registered with the IRS. Now, the website might not have been updated, but I'll just tell you, I found that very easily.
There's more websites. Go check them out. Do your freaking homework, dude. I'm not going to start Googling for you.
Now, that's a huge problem. It misleads donors and might constitute fraud under both federal and state law. So, guys, just be aware and make...
There's a phrase that my grandpa always liked to use. He was a hardworking old Dutch farmer, and there's nothing he hated worse than other lazy farmers, right? So we drive past like somebody's field and it wouldn't be done right, or they wouldn't be out. The sun's shining and they're not outside, and he would just look over and go, "Son, that farmer is bone lazy." And that's just Jared here. I hopped on GuideStar and I typed in something and it didn't pop up. So that tells me there's fraud and they're defrauding their donors and there's all these things. You are I'm floored. I'm flabbergasted at his lack of ability to look this stuff up. Now, to be honest, if you go on the IRS's website, that thing is a tangled webbed nightmare. Like, I understand. I have spent an hour at a time on there before looking up other documents and different things over the years. It's a pain in the ass, but I eventually found them, and you should too, Jared. Instead of doing one quick Google search and going, well, it must not be there. I couldn't find it.
And he's being intentional. Either he's stupid or he's being intentionally disingenuous, because he's not talking about organizations like Iowa gun owners that have been around since 2009. We have brand new fights that we're waging right now in quite a few states where gunners are asking for help in their various state capitals. And so I don't know if Jared knows this or not, but the IRS has been backlogged for years from COVID, from their work from home policies. Some of these paperwork things take some time. Yep. And again, some of these groups are brand new, but sounds like fraud to me. Hell if I know. I mean, I guess it's a good attempt to try to feign disinterest, but just do better. Do better.
It really is disingenuous for him not to acknowledge the fact that he's relying on government bureaucrats in order to provide up-to-date information for him. So, I mean, it's just, again, it's all of this could have been avoided if he had simply called me back like he said he was going to do in our email chain back and forth, where I offered to have a sit down, no restrictions, no holds barred, no questions forbidden interview with Jared from Guns and Gadgets. And see previously in the video here for screenshots of that conversation. So let's let him keep on rolling here.
Really make an educated decision here. And why?
Oh, like you have.
Did you care?
That is solid advice, my friend.
Because every dollar that goes into the Dorr machine is a dollar that doesn't go into actual Second Amendment victories. Groups like GOA and FPC and SAF and others, they're all fighting in the courts and legislatures every single day. I've been reporting on that for over a decade.
Again, he documented the 1.4 million, and now he's sitting here saying any dollar that's going into these state fights where we're nitty-gritty up in their faces, in their districts, in their primary elections, all these different things that we're doing. He's saying any dollar that goes to that, to the state fight, especially because that's where we're by far and away the best at our work. he's saying that that's taking money away from GOA, $25 million in the last 3 years, NRA, which is over $1 billion in total contributions to that organization over the years, when they've been directly responsible for so much gun control. He's sitting here making the argument that by supporting local groups like this that we're stealing from the lawsuit shops over at GOA, FPC, NRA. It's like it's unbelievable. I'll let him keep going.
Now, the Dorr Brothers, though, it seems that they're fighting to stay on top of the outrage algorithm and collect more checks, in my opinion. Now, this isn't just wasteful, it's dangerous. It divides our movement, it attacks our allies, and gives the other side ammo to discredit legitimate grassroots advocacy. Now, guys, we should believe in transparency. We should believe in effective activism. And we should believe in calling out corruption no matter where it comes from.
I mean, okay. So there's that question right there. We should be calling out corruption. I guess my question is, and maybe I missed them. I've seen a lot of his videos over the years, but he said he's been doing it for a decade. 2019 was the height of NRA's exposure on how they were just dumping out millions and millions of dollars in lawsuits between themselves and Ackerman and Queen. These are donor dollars. They've been responsible, like I said, for so much gun control. They're openly supporting and calling for national red flag laws, but where was the accountability there? Where was it? It didn't exist.
Their website.
Well, I'm going to mention this too. I'm going to hit pause. I can't help myself here, Chris. We're talking about, he mentions where are they in the state legislatures. Well, that's exactly a typical BS tactic. You counter accuse what you're exactly guilty of. So I can't speak for everybody here, but pretty much I can, but I have never seen a GOA lobbyist in the state capitol in Iowa. I invited Larry Pratt there one time as a celebrity guest speaker. Never seen a GOA lobbyist in Iowa. Never seen a GOA lobbyist in Georgia. Never seen a GOA lobbyist in Missouri. Never seen a GOA lobbyist in Indiana. Never seen him in Illinois. Never seen him in Washington. I rarely, not never, but have rarely seen NRA in these state capitals. I've never seen.
It's always a scary
FPC.
thing. It's kind of a scary thing when you run into an NRA lobbyist in the state capitol, because a lot of times they're there to cut a deal and water down legislation that you've been working very hard to get through committee process intact. So it's always it's like a mixed bag. We've had some success with some of the recent lobbyists lately, but it's sometimes it's a scary thing.
And I'm talking about like over the course of the years. There's exceptions, certainly. But I mean, there's entire articles from like some bigger mainstream news stories about how these state organizations have become necessary and were formed in the vacuum caused by the inattention to state capitals from these national gun rights organizations. So millions flow out of red states in particular, and nothing or shekels, pennies, comes back in. They're not there at election time. They're rarely there during legislative session. And so the obvious question is, where the flipping hell are they? And so it's funny to me to listen to Jared with Guns and Gadgets ask where we are in the legislatures. I've never seen these other organizations in these legislatures. Almost no exceptions ever in approaching 20 years. So it's kind of ironic. Maybe if this guy, he's a social media guy, he should follow some of us on social media and watch us testify in state capitals all across the country. Watch us work in DC with some of the best members of Congress on introducing and fighting for big gun bills. Watch bill signings on the ground where we're at with these governors who know the impact that we're having. I guess he's missed all of that, or he's intentionally not talking about it, but I can't let that kind of crap go.
Yeah. I think the only state level operation that GOA has is in Pennsylvania, and I know their lobbyists there. He actually quit working for them at one point because GOA had compromised on a Wyoming SEPA bill that we were working on. So it's your point is totally well taken in this context. These people don't have state operations. They don't know how to pass bills. They've never worked in the legislatures. They're a lawsuit shop that has access to a lot of the political class in Washington, D.C., a lot of staffers and stuff like that. And that's why you don't see them walking up to people like Senator John Cornyn outside of the U.S. Senate like I did and stick a camera in his face when he was the architect of the Republican betrayal on Joe Biden's Bipartisan Safer Communities Act and confront him in person so that we could pump that stuff out into Texas and make him what he is right now, which is very vulnerable to being taken out by Paxton, who is primarying his worthless carcass because he's a total RINO trash ball. So,
well, there's in case anybody might think to yourself, well, a lot of these red states, they can kind of flow kind of on their own. They can coast. I mean, that's not how politics works. You're either gaining ground or you're losing ground. There's almost never a neutral. And Indiana is a perfect case study, deeply red state, super majority in the House and the Senate, Republican governor, and a better one now, thank God, than Eric Holcomb. And these guys passed red flags way before it was fashionable, 2012, because no one was guarding the store. They increase it, make them worse in 2018. Only 2 Republicans in the entire House vote no on red flag gun seizures. Why? Because there's nobody in Indy who's actually doing gun politics on the ground. And the national groups all gave them a freaking A+ or an A ranking for that bullshit. And so the problem that causes, and not only the Hoosiers have to live with red flag laws all the freaking time, then you've got, some words can't be blurbed out. Then you got people like John Kasich in Columbus pointing right across the border saying, well, if red Indiana can have a red flag law, why can't we here in Ohio? This is pro-gun. And, Chris, you guys are able to crush him and crush his career and crush his agenda, and you shut that thing down.
Absolutely.
But we looked at Indiana and said, what the hell are we going to do here? Because if we don't deal with Indy, it's going to continue to spiral. They're going to pass more gun control. In fact, they had a Republican Senator, Jack Sandlin. He's passed away now. But he tried to, again, beef up red flag laws just in 2023. And so we set about with Hoosiers, specific people we work with there on the ground. We established the Indiana Firearms Coalition. It is a tiny operation relative to some of our more senior organizations. Spent about 2 years doing the dreaded fundraising. We raised money. And then just last year, 2024, sat down with our team. We look at the board of all these fat, juicy rhinos who are up for re-election, all the ones that voted for red flag laws in 2018. And I don't just mean like the weaklings. I mean like the Senate Majority Leader, Roderick Bray, big names in politics. And we say, you know what? We're taking a piece out of his ass. And so we run huge election programs, at least huge relative to our budget. And we beat the holy hell out of the rhinos up and down the ballot, Senate side, congressional side, and state house side. And the result of that is, I'm going to forget her name right now. She was the number 3 in the Indiana House, the assistant majority leader, long time, Sharon Nagel, 12 years incumbent, absolute rhino trash ball, big supporter of red flag laws. She got boot stomped. She's out of office. She was the highest ranked rhino who got taken down. But here's the best part, and it's the whole reason why we did this. This year, 2025, well, we had a bill introduced to repeal red flags with Representative Zach Payne. That bill died, but the rhinos knew for the first time, oh, shoot, there is an organization out there who will come for our throat.
We're
over the vote for red flags. And frankly, I don't care if it's 20 years ago. There's no term limits in Indiana. If they're still in office, this vote, this play, and this fight will continue. So all of a sudden this year, for the first time, they pass a bill to begin to mitigate the damage caused by red flag laws. Now, they didn't repeal them. That's the ultimate goal. But they know they have to hide behind something at election time. And that's what happened this year. And again, every single bit of this we knew in advance. We knew the hits were going to come. So in the primaries, we're being attacked by National Shooting Sports Foundation. We're being attacked by in-state NRA, being attacked by all the leadership team members in the House and Senate. And I don't know if some of the gun tubers did it or not. Everyone, we all knew it was going to happen. We knew that in advance. But if we didn't deal with this, the Indiana problem would get bigger and bigger and bigger. And now we have shut that shit down in Indy.
And these fights, I want to reiterate again, these fights are not happening by GOA, by FPC, or by anybody else. Every freaking day, somebody's in our comment section going, hey, would you guys please start a group in this state or that state or the other state? We need help. We need help. Nobody's helping us. Nobody's helping us. And that's what you get with national level organizations like GOA and their $25 million, and FPC and their millions of dollars, and the NRA and their $1 billion. That's what you get. You get a bunch of guys pretending to be doing all this puppetry work in DC, screwing us on the NFA stuff, screwing us on the BBB, doing their 4D chess, while the Second Amendment suffers tremendously at the state level, and people are begging for help. Please, somebody come to my state capital and make that happen. But we're the only people doing that at the state level. And the consequence is big wins, little money. That's the consequence. We don't raise a fraction. Like Aaron said, Indiana Firearms Coalition, very small in comparison to some of the groups that we've had in operation for 10 or 15 years. But these people need some help. So big, small, or otherwise, we're going to do whatever we have the bandwidth to do to help these people out. And these big federal groups who don't like us and don't like how mean we are, they should, I don't know, spend a little bit of their money and actually help some of these people in the states where they live better their situation. But that stuff doesn't happen. It has not happened. And instead, they attack the only entity that has a state level operation doing a great job, doing everything we can do. And this is the outcome. We'll just move on from there, I guess.
Well, as the final encapsulation of that point, that's exactly why we started Tennessee Gun Owners after the Nashville church shooting in 2023. Right. The existing state of the defense of gun rights in Tennessee, which is where Jared from Guns and Gadgets lives, was that after the Nashville church shooting and the fake news and everybody was piling on top of us, you had these radical Democrats that were pushing red flag laws instantly. Well, guess who joined the call for that red flag law? Republican Governor Bill Lee and Republican Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson. So we started Tennessee Gun Owners for two reasons. Number one, to go down there and shut that down. And I got right in Jack Johnson's face, confronted him about the fact that he'd been recorded saying that we need to call this something other than red flag laws so we don't get slaughtered in the elections. I stuck a camera in his face. We instantly gassed that as much as we could using the infrastructure that we've built. We shut that red flag shit down. And some of the people, and Ben was there at one point. Alex was there with me. Some of our other guys were there. The team was there. Some of the people I didn't ever see in the Tennessee General Assembly, right there across from the Cordell Hull building, was Jared from Guns and Gadgets. I was there passing out flyers, bouncing office to office in the Cordell Hull building saying, hey, just want to let you guys know that if you guys pass this red flag gun confiscation, that we're going to come after you guys in the primaries. And if there's one thing I know about Tennessee gun owners, it's that they love their freaking guns. And so if you do this, it's basically committing political suicide. So that was the first reason. We had to stop that. But number two, if red flag laws, kind of to mirror what had happened in Indiana, if red flag laws had been allowed to pass in red Tennessee, the patron state of shooting things, that it would have been used as leverage to beat out of us in all the other states that we've been working very hard to stop it from passing in. And that would have been the opening the gates to passing red flag laws in Republican states all across the country, because there's tons of these RINO squish balls in all of these state legislatures that still suffer from the stupid ass idea that if we just compromise a little bit with them, maybe they'll go away or shut up. And that's political Pollyanna bullshit that I hear from these people all the time. So that's why we started Tennessee Gun Owners, because GOA wasn't there. Jared from Guns and Gadgets wasn't there. and nobody else was.
Right. But
And
Jared,
we know at the state level the massive damage that would have inflicted on the Second Amendment. And we weren't just willing. I could have stayed home. I didn't want to go. I'd rather go to Nashville and go down there on Broadway and drink a few drinks with my wife. That sounds a whole lot more fun to me, rather than going down there and having to get in these people's faces and spend my time uncompensated doing this. Plain and simple. It's the right thing to do.
And you would know this. You would know this, Jared, from Guns and Gadgets or GOA or any of these people if you did state level politics. So Chris is fighting in Tennessee. Aaron's running a program in Indiana, and I'm up at the Capitol in Minnesota listening to Democrat State Representative Crooked Eyes Dave Pinto in the House Public Safety Committee talking about how we can get this red flag law passed in Minnesota because Indiana did this.
Yep.
So we can do it here too. So I'm calling Aaron. We're working together, all of us, all the time to make sure that none of our states cause problems for the other states, that Tennessee doesn't pass this, that Indiana's, having passed it years ago before we got there, doesn't infiltrate in all these other states. But when you work in state level politics, you watch the politicians use the success in other states to try to further their agenda. And it's just part of the equation that we have to take into account as we fight at the state level, doing our jobs, doing it well, that people like Jared from Guns and Gadgets have no clue about, never even crossed their minds.
And going back to my bitter comments, this is why the websites are identical, Jared, because we ain't got time for this. We're trying to save these states, and he's just sitting here and bring up, this is they have identical websites.
What else?
That to me is so funny. I have to keep hitting that. I'm sorry.
Freedom Enterprises. It says this regarding politicians. I'll quote: "Hammer them to the wall for their bad votes, their refusal to pass or advance pro-gun bills, their betrayals of the oaths that they take to the Constitution, and the promises they break to the voters in their districts." That is something I totally agree with. It's the calculated vitriol,
you never done it though,
fear-mongering that I don't agree with.
And there is none of that.
Purposely swinging, carrying Americans to their corner for the sake of division and or donations is a model I can't support.
Again, we didn't divide. We didn't publish the letter. We didn't go on record before the Senate reconciliation vote on the 29th or after that, I think it was. We didn't 2 days previously. We're not the ones who divided the gun rights community by publishing a letter and waving the white flag to the Senate Majority Leader and saying that we're okay with zeroing out the tax. Instead of going battle lines like you have to do in those situations. Well, it helps if you've been in that situation before so that you know that that's the time to draw the battle lines and say, no, we, the gun rights community, have to be united on this, drive all the way to the wall. You know, maybe we could have, by drawing a hard line in the sand there, instead of dividing the gun rights community like they did with that letter, maybe we could have got suppressors in that bill. You know, maybe they would have taken out SBRs and SBSs, but maybe they would have capitulated on suppressors. And that could have been signed by or passed by Congress, signed by the president. And then you could have gone to your local gun store and bought them by filling out a 4473 instead of going on record with an unconstitutional agency like the ATF. Then we could have got a couple million of them out into private circulation. There could have been the secondary market on those things. And by the time the next anti-gun administration took place or got into place, the cat would have been out of the bag. It could not have been reversed. And maybe you could have done that by drawing that hard line in the sand and going to war, but they didn't. They're the ones who divided, not us.
I asked you to look
I have a question for you. I have a question for you, Jared, from Guns and Gadgets. You read, hammer them to the wall for their bad votes, their refusal to pass or advance pro-gun bills, their betrayals of the oath that they take to the Constitution, and the promises they break to the voters in their districts. You say, I support that 100%, but you don't like how mean we are. You tell me exactly how you would prefer us to hammer them to the wall for their bad votes.
Yeah, what would you have done to Matt WindShitL or Michelle Fischbach or any of these people that you held up as authorities or some source on this whole rat bag video?
It's like has the left been playing very nicely and not using any vitriol and not going after any of the Democrats who don't support, their agenda? Have they been kind and patient and consoling to the legislative class when pushing their leftist agenda, which they have done so successfully for so long? Jared from Guns and Gadgets, you're operating from a 1980s, 1990s political model that does not exist anymore. You either hammer them to the walls or you lose. That's it. Those are your options. You can play nice and you can be a little, like I said, pretty little boy with your little apple for teacher, like they are at some of these gun groups at the federal level, or you can fight like our ancestors fought and hammer these people to the wall. And you can win, and we have won, and we continue to win. You got to get your mind right about where we are in history.
Yes.
Right now, we got Donald Trump in the presidency. A lot of people love him. A lot of people hate him. Some people are frustrated now about the Epstein files and different things. I totally get it. But Donald Trump is gone in 3 years. Gone. Somebody else is going to take his place. Something else is coming at us. Maybe it's J.D. Vance. Maybe it's Gavin Newsom. And we're going to face a whole different reality. So right now is our chance to hammer these people to the walls, and it requires not being so nice.
If anything, what's going to happen when that happens, Ben, when that switch is made and the next Democrat gets in the White House, what they call aggressive today is going to have to scale up in orders of magnitude, because these people are trying to destroy our entire freaking country. I mean, this is not directly on guns, but yeah, it is. I mean, if we don't deal with some of the other national problems, we're not going to have a country left. Look at Europe. Look at what's happening. Hell, look at Minnesota, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah.
So the things that are coming to our country and the reasons why we have to make sure we never lose the right to keep and bear arms are far beyond theoretical or academic or philosophic. We're entering an extremely dark time, and perhaps the darkest time in our country's history, in our lifetimes, certainly in our children's lifetimes going forward.
Definitely.
And it is going to require men and women of great courage, great conviction, and great willingness to sacrifice and suffer the uncomfortableness of doing politics at a minimum, and much, much more to have any chance of saving our country. But please don't attack us for being, what was the phrase, aggressive or rough. Our country is burning to the effing ground. I don't know if Jared's got a family. I don't know if he has kids. I have no idea. I've got baby number 8 just about here right now. And I got a lot to fight for. Chris got a lot of kids. We all have a lot of kids. Everyone watching, you've got family, you've got friends, you've got kids, you've got grandkids, and all of that we care about, all that we love about its country and our history, our founding, and the freedoms that we still have. It's all up for grabs. And I don't think it's any longer just theoretical or in the era of our great-great-grandkids. We watched it in COVID. Thank God it got pulled back from the brink. But now the playbook is written. The left knows what they want to do. And the only reason why we didn't have cages in our country like they did in Australia, like they did in China and so many other countries, is that people would be there was the ultimate check on tyranny in the hands of the American people. That is the only reason why we did not have things so much worse in our country. Those days are not gone forever. They're gone for now. They're going to come back. And if anything, what we want as the Dorr Brothers, we want like 25 more guys that want to get involved. We want to see legions of young guys in their 20s who say, you know what? I want to get involved in whatever way I can to save my state, to save my country. There's nowhere else to go. And I'm sick and tired of the phonies and the frauds who are elected, who sit there and they say all that I want to hear during the election season, and they F me over. once they're elected in the state capitol or in Congress, and sometimes even our friends in the White House. And we need to see legions of young men who want to get, women too. We have tons of gals that work on our team, but we need guys who will go into a state capitol and drop bombs for gun owners, figuratively speaking, for the humor impaired, to help us complete these missions and fight these fights. If anything, we want to have, like, we have 16 groups now, Jared says. Love to have 32. Love to have 32 in just a couple more years. But we need young guys. If you're watching this and you have a stir in your soul to get involved in the fight for gun rights, and again, it's not just about gun rights. It's we're using gun rights to save these states, turn them red, turn them back, pull them back from the brink. If you have that stirred, you want to get involved, reach out to us. Hit one of us on X, put us in the comment section on YouTube, wherever you watch this video, ping one of us, and we would love to get more young guys and young gals involved in the fight for freedom. We're not going to do a bunch of chintzy BS stuff you see other organizations doing. It's hard hitting stuff that'll actually have a real impact. Definitely hit us up online.
Okay, we're going to speed rush through this, I think, and hopefully get this video wrapped up. Let's just let them go for a minute here.
There are groups that you see working to make improvements every single day, from state legislatures to state courts, from Congress to federal courts to the Supreme Court. The cream rises to the top, and the results, they speak for themselves.
I don't know what results he's talking about. Maybe you guys.
This video,
hot air and bull rises to the top too. That's what rises to the top. Is hot air and bull.
Yeah.
In 30 minutes or longer. Because if you do
until a few recent court victories, there has not been any victory of any kind anywhere by any of these organizations in any state, any place. Nothing has passed in Congress for decades, and nothing was happening at the state level that gun owners weren't making it happen themselves, or in states that we work in.
The final series of emails, Ben. I mean, come on, you're not giving due deference there. Like right before passage, you can always count on a series, a round or two of emails to fly in at the last minute and say, here, get on board with these bills to our members in these different states. It does a really good job of making it look like you've been there up front and then close the entire time. So
I've seen that more than a few times. There's just nothing. There's nothing.
Yeah. Keep going.
Simple search. There are tons of reports out there about issues or potential issues with the Dorr Brothers. In fact, there's even a website that I'll link down below that may interest you, as it lists many issues that have been reported with them. Guys, if you support...
I mean, that website is run by a bunch of Trump-hating radical left. You know more about this than I do, Ben.
Just nameless, faceless rubes. So left. Yeah. I mean, honestly, like we cannot emphasize enough. We are Christian, conservative, pro-gun, pro-life, pro-God, constitutionalists who love our country, our families, and we have a long vision for what we're doing here. It's not about tomorrow. It's not about a year from now. It's not about any of that stuff. It's about the long-term future. And some of the people who hate us, and I don't include Jared on this. I don't think Jared is like these people. Jared with Guns and Gadgets. I do believe that Jared with Guns and Gadgets is a pretty authentic person, all things considered, although he's made some tremendous mistakes when it comes to this video. But other organizations, other groups, and other people who hate us are straight up full-blown social leftists. Straight up. So they're not opposed to us just like politically, we're ideologically opposed. We view life through a very different lens. Like I said, faith, family, freedom, our kids, grandkids someday. We look at what America used to be, and we're scared of what America is becoming, and we're fighting to stop that. And some of these people who hate us are straight up like drag queen supporting, abortion supporting, so-called pro-gun leftists. And if those people hate us, then I would consider myself doing a good job.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't have said that any better.
Real 2A work. Make sure that your donations are going to reputable, transparent organizations. And share this video to warn others about what it is that the Dorr Brothers have set up. If you've had experiences or have some receipts to share, drop them in the comments below. I know that their rage and
What's that?
We gave you some, Jared.
Yeah, no kidding.
anger has affected people that watch my videos, because I've seen your comments. I've seen you guys have all sent me the videos that they do saying that, you know, there was a backroom deal. And again, it's horse shit.
Except for the letter that they published publicly 2 days before everything started kicking off. So it's not actually horse shit, and we've shown that now in this video.
Have the Dorr Brothers backed legislation? Some legislation in some areas? Yes, they have. However, it is legislation that, in my opinion, is a perfect world scenario. Like they have one that's to delete the NFA, which is great. But the way it's written, there's no way they get 60 votes in the Senate. They just don't have the support.
Anybody want to weigh in on that one? I mean, if I had a dollar for every time I've read an article or been attacked, like in Ohio, for example, when we first worked with now deceased Representative Ron Hood to introduce constitutional carry, the NRA affiliate in Ohio said, "We like the bill. It'll never pass in Ohio because of the way our establishment is set up. It's because of the Republican establishment." But in politics, extremes dictate the middle. Anybody can see this by looking at the radical left, and you grow simply by starting the fight. So if you don't start somewhere and think, this idea that you got to have 60 votes lined up before you even commence the fight is absolutely preposterous. And it's one that I thank God that nobody ever whispered in the ear of George Washington, because if he had been told, no, we can't go to war with King George III because we're going to lose. By any rational standard, it's the world's largest and most powerful military. We're going to get our butts kicked. But they said, no, we value this over that, and we're going to fight regardless. We've exhausted all of the diplomatic methods possible, but so now we're going to make this fight. That's all you got to do. Start the fight by simply saying, we demand full deregulation of the NFA. You could have got more, but you didn't even try. You said, no, let's punt this fight over to the courts because that's the only place we've ever fought in. We've got this 4D chess idea that we think could work, even though the Supreme Court has screwed us over, and we're going to go that way instead. Thank God that our founding fathers did not suffer from that kind of stupidity.
Well, he just demonstrated where all of the other federal gun groups started from.
Exactly.
We started with, let's repeal the NFA, baby. Let's gut it all. Hard push, might not make it. Don't know. Uphill battle, all the things. Yes, it's like Gimli in Lord of the Rings. It's like small chance of certainty of death, small chance of success. What are we waiting for? You start there and you push as hard as you can. And if you start with 100%, but the legislature or Congress screws you down to 80%, and that's what you go with, you got 80%. But if you start off like Jared and GOA and you go, we're never going to get 60 votes in the Senate, I guess we're going to go with suppressors. If you start with 20% and you end with 5%, you just screwed yourselves. You screwed your followers. You screwed the movement. You have to start at the top and go as hard as you can and land where it lands in the end. If you start with what you think is possible, you get nothing. You get screwed, and we got screwed.
And the worst part of that right there is that when you do that, then that loss is on you as a gun rights organization. But if you start at 100% and they only deliver 80% or they only deliver 20%, that 80% that they choked on is on them. And now you can go after them in election seasons or in primaries and stuff like that. And I personally prefer that the responsibility for not having rights codified, given to us by God and codified in law, I prefer the responsibility for that to be on the politicians instead of on the gun rights organizations who are supposed to represent our members to them.
That's why we said this a half an hour ago. They've never, ever, not in 40 years has GOA, or in 140 years has NRA ever filed a bill to actually repeal the freaking NFA. They've never filed a bill to abolish the ATF. I mean, we're all there with members of Congress in front of the ATF headquarters building doing press conferences announcing we're going to abolish these mofos. Nobody has ever even filed it until we came along and began doing stuff like this. It's the siren song of a loser in life and in politics to say we can't do this because there's a chance we might not win. We already have 15 to 20% of the Republican conference in DC on these bills as co-sponsors right now. And that's despite or in spite of the opposition from all of these gun tubers, from all the national gun rights organizations. They've done nothing to advance this. They've actually worked behind the scenes to block this or slow this down. That's a separate podcast sometime later on. We already have close to 20% of the conference already. Imagine if all these groups stop acting like this and actually push the whole way. But again, I don't know if Jared from Guns and Gadgets is singing the siren song, or if he doesn't know any better, or if he does and he's trying to purposely make this seem more confusing. But only a loser refuses to play for keeps until they have a guaranteed chance of victory, because if that's what you play for, you'll never get on the field in the first place.
Yep. I think we're at the end of his video here. I'm going to play the last couple of seconds. I think he goes into a like and subscribe monologue.
But they'll go hog wild, complaining about anything else anybody else will back if it doesn't meet their vision. So I don't know. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This is Guns and Gadgets, where I bring you the truth that the mainstream will not touch.
Okay.
I want to throw in there right now. I know it's been a long video, and we've thrown some punches and things. Jared, we will, any one of us, or all three of us, or two of us, or any of us at any time, I think I can speak for all of us, will happily do a video with you, even now, to answer these questions, to talk about what we think actually happened in the BBB fight, what we saw, what happened with the NFA stuff. We're willing to have that conversation now, even though we had to address your ridiculous video, and we'll do it in good faith, and we'll do it happily. So just keep that in mind as this video wraps up.
Yeah. I don't really have anything else to say, but I thought what you said just a minute ago, Ben, was a good note to end on. We are definitely worldview Christians, worldview activists who are in this fight for the Second Amendment for the same reason that all of our members are. It's because we've inherited some freedoms. We grew up in an era where we didn't think some of the things that we see right now are possible. And we're watching this world change for the worse very rapidly. And so the opportunities that you get to fully address some of the issues don't come along very often. It's never happened in Congress in my lifetime. So when they come along, we have to not act like it's 1995. We have to not sit there and bloviate and say things like we're better than that. If all the memes online that you'll see, the T-shirts that you'll see at a gun show, where they all say something to the effect of whatever is going to happen, let it happen in my lifetime, so that this doesn't have to happen to my kids or my grandkids. We believe those things 100%. So when they sit there and accuse us of being ass beaters and not playing patty cakes and singing Kumbaya with these legislators and going after them, and exposing them to their voters in their districts at election time, when it is absolutely the most politically advantageous to gun owners and the most politically painful to these politicians, those are things that we cannot afford not to do as a gun rights community, as a pro-life community, and as people with a stake in the future of this country. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Sucks if you didn't. I think we've answered a lot of the questions. If you guys have more questions, just reach out, hit us in the comments, and maybe we'll do another video on them. We're an open book. We always have been. And it's one of the great tragedies of this video by Jared from Guns and Gadgets that he didn't sit down with us from the outset and simply have a conversation in this about all these topics. So anything else from you guys?
We've said it all.
All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please share this video with everybody you know, and we'll see you in the next one.